Welcome back. This is John's dad, and you joined the video series on planning for and hiking the King's Trail in Sweden. In Swedish, the King's Trail is called Kungsleden, which, guess what, translates to the King's Trail. In this video, we'll briefly cover the history and general information about Kungsleden. I'll introduce Kungsleden so you feel comfortable. If you're watching this series to decide if you want to hike Kungsleden or not, just skip to the end. Save your time. You do want to do it. You will never regret the experiences. Kungsleden was first imagined by a group of professors at the Uppsala University in the late 1800s. It stretches 420 kilometers, or about 300 miles, in the remote Swedish mountains between Hemavan in the south, past Jäkvik, Ammarnäs, Kvikkjokk, Skerfe, Saltelukta, Vakotavara, Singi, Selke, Kebnekaise, and Alesjara, to Abisko in the north. These names mean nothing to you now, but once you finish your hike, you'll have a personal relationship with each. Most often, you will find yourself above tree line with views that are limited only by remote ridges and an occasional cloud. There are tons of bridges to walk over, and there are 7 required water crossings. You'll descend from the infinite views on top of the mountains, down through the pine and birch forest to the water's edge, where you might decide to borrow a rowboat or hire a motorboat to ferry you to the other side.
And in the video you say, "Captain, my captain."
On land, the summer Kungsleden is marked by red or orange blazes. The winter Kungsleden is lined with red crosses at the top of tall poles. The winter trail goes over water that is frozen solid in the winter, so don't think you can use it as a shortcut in the summertime. Usually, the two trails run together. Watch carefully on your maps for where they diverge. Where the two trails run together, they're represented by a solid line on the map. The winter Kungsleden, when it is alone, is dashes, and the Kungsleden that you'll probably be following mostly is dots. You can reach the trailheads by foot, car, train, bus, and even helicopter. Many hikers drink water straight from the rivers, streams, and lakes. Some use the traditional wooden cup you see here. They hang it within easy reach on their backpacks. When thirsty, they just dip the cup in a nearby stream and take a sip. A collapsible rubber cup is pretty common now, too. You don't need a water filter. The water is clear of sediment and fairly pure. I recommend that you at least treat your water chemically before drinking it. I met some people at this bridge who were begging others for Imodium because they were suffering from diarrhea. You can sleep in your tent for free almost anywhere you like because of a law called Allemansrätten, or every man's right. I'll cover that in a future video. Don't bother bringing your hammock though. While using a hammock is absolutely permitted, you will be missing 2 key requirements most nights. You can also pay to stay in mountain cabins which have bunk beds and a common room with tables and a propane stove. They do not have electricity or running water. Well, there is running water, but it's in a nearby stream or lake. You share a big pail to fetch some for the group. You can tent near the mountain cabins and use the common room for a small fee, or hike further and camp for free somewhere up the trail when you get tired. Mountain stations are a little more fancy with electricity, running hot water, flush toilets, showers, excellent restaurants, saunas, laundry, very slow Wi-Fi, and the same bunk beds as the mountain cabins. These are good places to take a rest day. They're often located at common trailheads. You can buy food and other supplies in all of the mountain stations and in about half of the mountain cabins. I cover resupply in detail in my book, and we'll talk about it in general in a video that's dropping in a couple weeks. Expect prices to be about 50% higher than you would see at home because deliveries in the mountains are often made by snowmobile or helicopter. You will be able to find everything you require, but wants and desires may need to be compromised, especially near the end of the hiking season. Some of the villages along your way, like Ammernes, Jakvik, Kvikjok, have typical grocery stores which can cater to Kungsleden hikers too. Freeze-dried meals, bars, snacks, ice cream, pizza, candy. This is the Goodies Fabriken. This is the candy factory. There's something here for every taste. The weather can change drastically and quickly. Expect temperatures from below freezing to 70 degrees Fahrenheit or maybe 20 degrees Celsius on the same day. You can expect it to rain on about half of the days. I was lucky that it only rained 10 days during my hike. You will need rain pants. Don't believe people who tell you to save the weight and leave them at home. Check out my Monday Mistakes video for more background on my experience with rain pants on Kungsleden. Sometimes close and sometimes far away, you will see reindeer every day. I didn't intend for that to rhyme, it just happened this time. Thanks for watching this series on Kungsleden. If you have questions, please leave them below. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the rest of the Kungsleden series. If you have a friend who likes adventures, share this video with them so you can start planning your Kungsleden hike together. The first half of my book, John's Dad Hikes Kungsleden, covers in great detail all the planning and logistics needed. It includes decision-making tools and checklists so you don't forget anything. The second half of the book shares the daily views, challenges, and experiences with my newfound hiking friends from all over the world. Please download a sample of the Amazon Kindle version. The link is in the video notes. The paperback version works well for somebody who is actually going to plan their hike. The Kindle version is perfect for research or general information. In these Kungsleden videos, I will teach you some basic Swedish words that will help you on your hike. The first one is hej då. Hej då. In about 2 weeks I leave for the King's Trail. I want to tell you a little bit about my food planning. It's a 300-mile trail, and every day or so there is a hut that sells food. It's kind of expensive, so I'm going to augment the purchased food with resupply boxes. I'm going to send myself 4 resupply boxes, and in them we'll have meals for 4 days. Now each little segment will take me more than 4 days, but I'll be buying food from the shelters, from the cabins. A typical day includes a freeze-dried meal for dinner. And I've tried all of these, they're all good. It includes some fruit, made fruit leather from cranberry sauce. This isn't the cranberry jelly that you'd get at Thanksgiving time. This is actually cranberry sauce with the cranberries in it. I throw it in a blender, mix it up, dry it, and it becomes a flexible fruit leather. This kind of fruit leather is also homemade: bananas, applesauce, cinnamon, and a good amount of honey, which gives it a nice sweet flavor. I also make myself some dehydrated apple slices. Slice them up, dip them in a mixture of honey and lemon juice to prevent browning, and sprinkle them with cinnamon. Yummy. Of course, Cliff Bars and a Bull Bar bars I like. These force me to drink water. A bite of this tastes good, and then you wash it down with some water. If you want to ever know what 1,300 calories of trail mix looks like, this is it. Each one of these bags weighs half a pound, and contains 1,300 calories. That's about 165 calories per ounce. Great ratio. So I've got 4 resupply boxes ready, and they all contain something like this. For the week, for each box, I've got 2 Snicker bars, or a little fun-sized bar for each day. Each one of those is about 80 calories. I also have some homemade beef jerky spread in a couple of the boxes. I'm starting using these noon tablets. I'm not sure if they're really good or not, but I'm going to be a long way from anywhere, and I thought a little bit of nutrition wouldn't be bad for me. Of course, every resupply box is going to have some biodegradable wipes, and who doesn't like having some hot chocolate with dinner? Don't do it. Just don't do it. Hi, this is John's dad. Welcome back to my video series on preparing for and hiking the King's Trail in Sweden. It's referred to as Kungsleden in Swedish, which means, guess what? The King's Trail. One way to resupply is to send yourself resupply boxes along the way. There are several places that you can ship yourself a box. Easy enough to pick up. Next week, I'll show you how to resupply by buying food along the way. You'll have to decide which way works best for you, and you may come up with a hybrid flavor that works just for you, for your special needs, maybe your nutritional needs or your desires. And the boxes, of course, can hold supplies for the next section of trail too. So you don't have to have just food in your resupply box. Traditionally, resupply boxes are thought of as resupplying you along the trail to help you cover the next section of trail. But in this case, you may want to send yourself a resupply box at your last trailhead. Maybe it's Abisko or Hemavan. In that box, you can have all of your travel clothes, maybe papers, tickets, whatever it is that you need to continue after your hike. Protect your passport and other valuables, though. That box may never be seen again, by you anyway. In my book, John's Dad Hikes Kungsleden, I go over in great detail how to ship resupply boxes to yourself. I give you all the details, but I'll cover it here real briefly. Get yourself a box, fill it up with whatever you want, address it just like you probably would at home. On 6 sides, all 6 sides, put your name, when you're arriving, the date, and some kind of a colored shape. Now when you do your date, your country might do it month, day, year, day, month, year, you don't know. So use this format instead: day, an abbreviation and letters for the word for the month and the year. Now, for the colored shape, don't everybody do green triangles. Don't do it. The shape is what you can tell the person picking up your box. It's a brown box. I've got a green triangle written on it, or a circle, or a triangle, or a rhombus. Now, triangles don't get too fancy. You don't have to worry about equilateral triangles, isosceles triangles, scalene triangles. Don't worry about that. Just draw a triangle. Don't draw this unless you know what it's called in Swedish, and I certainly don't. When you drop your box off, there'll be a little bit of paperwork to fill out, and I'll go into some of that detail later here. One of the options that you have to select is utkörning, literally translated out driving, remote delivery. You need to select remote delivery, and it does cost a little bit more. If you don't select the remote delivery or utkörning, your box is going to end up at a depot, hour or 2 hours away from where you expect your box to be delivered. It won't be practical for you to go and pick up the box and come back. You waste a half a day, and whatever the cost would be of a taxi, and you're not going to have a car with you. Each place where you can send a resupply box to yourself has a preferred delivery method. The two methods are PostNord, which is the normal post office you might expect, and Busgoods, or bus goods. Basically, they take your goods, put them on their buses, and the boxes get delivered along with the people. You need to select the right one because not everybody delivers everywhere. PostNord has an interesting history going all the way back to the 1600s, and I'll put a link in the video notes. Check it out. I thought it was kind of interesting. Being that PostNord is like the regular post office you might be accustomed to, it has locations everywhere, but it no longer has standalone post office locations. Instead, they've partnered with retailers, and a regular store will handle their normal business, and then you'll be in line, and then you'll say, I want to ship this box. And they'll sell you the postage or stamps, or take the box. You can pick up deliveries there. It's just part of the process of regular retailers now. For example, when I shipped my box on PostNord, I went to a flower shop and I was able to, in a single transaction, ship my box and buy birthday flowers for my mother. This is a short video to help you figure out how to find out the PostNord locations nearest you. Open up the PostNord app on your phone. The lower right-hand corner, click on Profile. Near the bottom here, find PostNord locations. Select that. Let's assume that you are on Gamlestan, which is the center of Stockholm. It happens to be where the castle is. Very close, actually, to a couple different subway stops, so it's very convenient. Right here, you see, here's the Coop or the Co-op. It's a grocery store. Click on it, and the app on your phone will even give you directions to it. That easy. To send your box, find one of the locations, take the box in, explain to the clerk in English, don't worry about it, they all speak English now, about how much fun you're going to have in the Swedish mountains, and they'll be very jealous because they know it's how beautiful it is up there. Give them the box and move on. Busgoods was founded around 2000. It's mostly active in northern Sweden where there are fewer alternatives for package delivery. Their website is totally in Swedish, though in my book I do some translating, so it will help a little bit. You go there, find out where the closest location is to you, and I'll give you a video here on how to do that. You can come to the busgoods.se website. I could not find an app for Busgoods. Go there, select this option, Vi finns här, which means we are here. So it's find our locations. Now you want to ship a package or send a package. That's the box you want to click. And if you use the zip code, one of the zip codes for, or postal codes for Stockholm, you have two locations. Over here on the west side and very far to the east. Those are your two options for shipping a box bought by Busgoods in from the Stockholm area. Good luck. As you saw, there are only two locations near me, and in Stockholm it's the same. There's only a couple locations. You have to get yourself to the shipping location with your filled boxes. And what are they going to weigh each? 10 pounds maybe, 5 kilos. And you have to get your way back. In my case, I was in Malmö. My brother Carl drove me to the building, a huge building inside a massive industrial complex. We drove around the building a couple times. No sign or anything for Busgoods. He noticed a little door off in a corner, so we parked near the door and went in, and sure enough, we asked the guy at the counter about bus goods, and he looked confused, but he called a friend over. The friend said, oh yeah, he set us down at a terminal, and we spent the next hour and a half filling out the paperwork to ship 3 boxes. Now, my friend Carl, he's fluent Swedish speaker. I'm pretty good in Swedish. And on the screen was all of these freight terms that you would not know existed, and you don't know what they mean unless you have a background in logistics and shipping. So, having just retired from an IT career in logistics and shipping, you would think we would be in good shape. It was horrible. It didn't help that the office itself was 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 centigrade. It was a really tough hour and a half to get all those things shipped. Remember, when you go bus goods, you're shipping. When you go to Post Nord, you're mailing. Totally different situations. So you may be getting the feeling that I'm not really pro bus goods, and I'm not, but it might work for you. So it is important that you be aware of that option. You may need to get whatever food or medicine, whatever it is that you need. You might need to get that to yourself. So bus goods is definitely an option. All of my boxes were delivered, so that's a good thing. If you've had good luck using bus goods, leave a comment down below. I've been wrong before, and I could be wrong this time too. My recommendation is that you send your boxes as soon as you get to Sweden. It's going to take them a long time to get from wherever you are all the way up into the Swedish mountains and be delivered out to that remote village or to the mountain station where you're going to pick them up. Get them on their way right away. Now, if you'd rather hang on to your boxes until the last minute, and that might work for you, if you're going northbound from Hemavan up to Abisko, there is a bus goods location right in the middle of Hemavan, and it's not that big of a town. You can easily walk there carrying your boxes. It's near the restaurant. It's near the bus stop. It's right there. It'd be hard to miss it. If you want to go the other way, a lot of people hike from Abisko south to Hemavan. The nearest bus goods location is more than an hour away. So that doesn't work. But you could go to Skellefteå, Umeå, Luleå, Jokkmokk. They do have bus goods locations. So you could drop it off there. Now you'll have to change your travel plans so you go there first, maybe spend a day. It's a really cool area to visit. So it would not be wasted. It would definitely be something you'd want to do and you'd benefit from. And then go from there after you've shipped your boxes. Go either to Abisko or to Hemavan and start your hike. Picking up your boxes is not at all difficult compared to shipping them. It's very easy. You stand outside the building, make a fist, and clasp your thumbs. You're holding your thumbs for good luck. Now, if you're in the States, you cross your fingers for good luck, but you're in Sweden. You need Swedish good luck. Go inside, tell them that you're here to pick up a package that you sent to yourself. They're going to ask your name. Feel free to tell them your name. Don't tell them my name. And tell them you drew a green triangle on the side. But only tell them that if you did draw a green triangle. If you drew a red heart, tell them that instead. They'll find it right away. 3 of my boxes were found immediately. One of them, the guy recognized my name as I was checking in at the mountain station. He says, "Oh, you have a box." And he had it back up to me before I was done checking in. One of the places had trouble finding my box and suggested I go take a shower first. Did I really need the shower? Did they have trouble finding it? I don't know. But the box did show up. All 4 of my boxes were actually delivered in pretty good shape. One of the boxes was kind of destroyed on the outside, but all the contents of all the boxes were just fine. Nothing was damaged. Depending on the location, you might have to pay a small holding fee. Now, I didn't have to pay this. You might have to. I understand Nikkaluokta does charge some kind of a fee, and that's up to you. It actually won't add that much cost to your trip. Everybody I dealt with along the way, including in the bus goods location that was 80 degrees Fahrenheit, was friendly and as helpful as they could be. For the most part, they spoke English. I tried to do everything in Swedish as I could, but they did speak English. I don't know if they spoke other languages. You'll find that out when you get there. Each box costs about $35 US or about 350 crowns to ship. So as you're trying to decide if you're going to save money, factor in that shipping of the box. So that's almost $10 a day or 100 crowns a day. My boxes carried 4 to 5 days worth of food and supplies. So it added some money to each day. Now, as you'll see next week, the food you buy in the mountains is pretty expensive. So it might justify it for you. You have to decide that after next week's video. When you leave home from whatever country you're in, I don't think you're going to be able to travel with all of your resupply boxes filled, taped, addressed, ready to go. Maybe you can. I think what you're going to have to do is take all of those supplies, stick them in a bag, cram those bags into your luggage or into your backpack, and then maybe take and bring along some collapsed cardboard boxes that you can tape up later. In my case, I was lucky. Carl saved me some empty boxes, and as friendly as he is, I don't know that he's going to want to do it for everybody. As you'll see in the video next week, I've decided to resupply by buying food along the trail next time, and there will be a next time. This is a beautiful, beautiful trail. It's absolutely wonderful. In my book, I cover resupply both through the boxes and through buying food along the way in detail, great detail. So if you're interested in general in hiking the King's Trail, just get the Kindle version of the book. It saves you a ton of money. If you really think that you need the paperback version, go ahead and get that. The checklist's in there, a lot easier to use, of course, if on the paper. And half the book is just the story of day to day of the people I met, the views, the reindeer. It was really a great experience. I definitely recommend, if you like backpacking, this is a trail to put on your list. So if this is something you're interested in, please subscribe, share it with your friends. Definitely like it if you liked it. Yeah. See you down the trail. Y'all get hungry. Hi, this is John's dad. Welcome back to my video series on planning for and hiking the King's Trail in northern Sweden. This 420 kilometer or 300 mile trail is known as Kungsleden in Swedish. In previous videos, we talked about preparing resupply boxes and then sending them to yourself using PostNord or bus goods. In this video, we'll cover what I think is the easier option of buying food and supplies en route in the villages, in the mountain cabins, and the mountain stations. I'll repeat my recommendation that you focus your time, money, and efforts on resupplying locally, as I described in this video. The time I spent planning, packing, and sending those resupply boxes was unbelievable and would not have been possible without a lot of help from my brother Carl. Now, Carl is a great guy, but you can't expect him to help you as much as he helped me. This video is packed full of information. I'll talk about resupplying in the villages, at mountain stations, and at mountain cabins. I'll help you figure out a strategy for resupply, and we'll finish up with some budgeting. First, I'll cover the villages in alphabetic sequence. You might hike northbound or southbound. I doubt you're going to hike them alphabetically, but this might work for you anyway. In Abisko, at the northern end of Kungsleden, there's a large ICA grocery store within easy walking distance of both train stations and the mountain station. They're connected by a paved trail, at most a couple kilometers long. Kungsleden is more than 400 kilometers. You can do it. The ICA store has a huge candy selection. Norway has a very high tax on sugar to influence the behavior of its citizens. When Norwegians want sweets, it's cost effective for them to drive all the way to Abisko to get their candy fixed. Swedish stores recognize the business opportunity and encourage Norwegian customers with an endless display of goodies. That's your second Swedish word. Your first one was hej då or goodbye, and this one is goodies, which you probably guessed means candy. If you're starting your hike in Abisko, you may decide to send a box to yourself here with the food and supplies you'll need. Depends on what you're doing before your hike. If you'll be finishing your hike in Abisko, there will certainly be things you'll need after the trail that you don't want to carry on your back for a whole month. So a resupply box can also be thought of as an end of hikes box. Protect your passport and other valuables though. Everything else you might need can be purchased in Abisko. On the east side of Ammarnäs, you'll find the Ammarnäs Liv store. It can best be described as a general store. It has all the food and supplies real people want, all the food and supplies you might need, and all kinds of hardware people need for taking care of their homes and equipment. The people working there are beyond friendly and helpful. There's a mailbox or post box right outside their door. You can buy postcards and stamps in the store, fill them out on the picnic table in the sun, and then mail them to your grandchildren. That's what I did anyway. I made several return trips into the store for ice cream and candy, and I even picked up a bottle of Diet Pepsi for my hiking partner, Uni. When we asked them about places to eat lunch, they directed us a few hundred meters west to the Ammarnäs Guide Center past this cute cottage you can rent. Ammarnäs Guide provides services and gear for hunting, fishing, and hiking. They also have a wonderful little bistro with various dishes including hot hamburgers and fries. Uni tried to sneak one of my fries, but they're not on her diet. In Beverholmen, just west of Alderström, there's a restaurant that has lots of good food that you can eat on site or take to go, especially bread and pastries. The locals eat here, so you know it's good. You can pick up a sugary snack to eat later when the trail gets steep heading up out of town, and it does get steep. Take a boat ride into Alderström if your burger and fries are riding especially heavy in your stomach. The store in Alderström will meet your resupply requirements and sell you ice cream if they are open. I was so disappointed that they were closed as we hiked past. If you remember from the previous video, I did most of my resupplies using boxes I sent in advance. While some ice cream and treats would have been nice, my food bag was already full. Hemavan at the southern end of Kungsleden has a full-blown outfitter, a bus goods depot, several restaurants and bars, an especially good buffet restaurant above the outfitter, a mountain station, a mountain center. An ICA grocery store is just steps away too. This is all about a kilometer or so downhill from the southern terminus of your hike. Jakvik has an ICA grocery store with a large selection dedicated to us. It even has a Tesla charging station. You can get pizza, hot dogs, hamburgers, seafood, and much more. You can take food with you on the trail, back to the campground at Shorkens Fjellgård, that's the hostel in town, or pop it in the oven in your cabin to make a real homemade meal. If you're not from the area, ask a shopkeeper how to prepare palt. Try this local delicacy. Don't forget to check out their good supply of ice cream and candy too. Enjoy your meal overlooking Sweden's deepest lake. It doesn't look very deep from here, but they assure me it is. You will pass 4 mountain stations on Kungsleden. The mountain stations in Abisko and Hemavan have already been covered because they're in one of the small towns we talked about earlier. The Kvikjok mountain station is in a small village, which is so small there is no local grocery store. Your resupply options include only the mountain station. Its store has a reputation of being poorly stocked though. Your requirements will be met, but after a few days on the trail, you may get tired of eating bacon-flavored tube cheese on crackers for lunch and a vegetarian mushroom risotto freeze-dried meal for dinner. This might be a place you decide to send a resupply box. Kvikjok is close to the halfway point, so it could be very practical. Next time, though, I'm going to take a chance and plan to buy from their store. Can you guess which delivery method is required for Kvikkjokk? You can if you watch my previous videos on shipping resupply boxes to yourself. As you pass through Kvikkjokk, take some time for a snack down by the rapids. You can hear them from the front porch. Take some pictures, enjoy the view, relax in the sun. The restaurant at Kvikkjokk is run by a chef, not just a cook. It wasn't until after I cleaned my plate that I realized I should have taken a picture of my grilled trout dinner that came with garlic new potatoes and asparagus. It was as beautiful as this raspberry and blueberry cheesecake dessert. Saltoluokta is a major mountain station. We took a 00 at Saltoluokta. We didn't need to, but we were having fun. The store will far exceed your needs. I even bought a pair of Fjellraven rain pants there. Check out my Monday mistakes to learn more about them. The breakfast and lunch at the restaurant were fantastic. I couldn't get enough. I ate dinner in their restaurant twice. Dinner time in the Sami culture is also story time, so each night someone shared an interesting anecdote about the local area and people. It made all of us strangers feel closer and warmed up the mood of the room. I hesitate to say it, but the meals were disappointing. They announced they were experimenting with some new recipes for locally caught fish. I liked the idea, but not the meals. I filled up on bread and butter. The third night, I cooked dinner on the propane stove in the bunkhouse with my family using the food from the store and my food bag. Now that was a good meal. Ask at the front desk about the Sami Village Cafe. It's a slack pack hike up about 4 kilometers on a different trail. This is a great opportunity to learn about the local culture and enjoy some of the local cuisine. They have limited hours, so verify that they're open. We learned just as we're heading out the door that the cafe had closed the day before for the rest of the season. Disappointing. I know this would have been a highlight of the hike. I want to include another resupply point that doesn't fit into any other category. Vronatviken is a private motorboat crossing with cabins and some camping on the north side of the water. The little store has some basics you can use to top off your food bag, but don't plan a full resupply there. If you make a dinner reservation in the little office, you can get a hot moose burger and fries at the restaurant. They have a full menu too, but who can pass up a moose burger and fries? Uni couldn't. Don't be put off by the initially gruff nature of the owner. He's actually quite nice when you get to know him. The Swedish Tourist Association, or Svenska Turistföreningen, STF, has a webpage that talks about resupplying in the backcountry at the mountain stations and mountain cabins. I'll take you there shortly. You should go there yourself to complete your research and finalize your plans as your departure date approaches. Remember, they can change which cabins have a store without telling me. While it might be bad to carry more food than you need, it'll be worse if you run out because they closed the mountain cabin store. Let's take a look at what they offer in the stores. We'll go to the English version of the websites. The Swedish versions do contain some more details, but it's functionally the same. You don't worry about missing anything important. Go to the STF website and look for mountain. Below mountain and general information, you'll find shop off the beaten path. I might have translated it to backcountry resupply or something like that, but shop off the beaten path works fine too. Here they show you a picture of the Salka mountain cabin, which happens to be one of the mountain cabins where I shopped. This is a fairly typical cabin. Each is unique, but they're all the same. On the left side of the door is the shop. The host lives into the right of the store. You go into the left and pick out your supplies. Like in all the other cabins, I paid with a credit card. You shouldn't assume you can always pay with a credit card because you can't. Sometimes you can't because their battery ran down or there is some other technical problem. You need to eat, so bring some cash. I'll cover cash reserves after we figure out your budget. They have 2 ranges, as they call it, or assortments of offerings at the mountain cabins. A small assortment and a large assortment. Like I said before, you'll be able to meet all of your requirements as long as you're willing to compromise your wishes and desires. Here are the mountain cabins that have a small assortment. We'll take a peek at a small assortment first. Remember, they intend to offer what you see, but they do not promise it will be available. The options go down near the end of the hiking season too. The small assortment list is in Swedish, but don't worry. When you walk into the little store, you won't need to read the label to know what you're buying. It's pretty straightforward. The small assortment list is 1 page long. You may recognize the word goodies here at the top as your second Swedish vocabulary word. The goodies they have are chocolate, Snickers, and a bag of goodies or a bag of candy. For drinks, you'll find coffee, powdered milk, soft drinks, and beer. Continuing, you'll find pasta, rice, and beans. On the pharmacy shelf, you'll find hygiene products, bandages, and bug spray. You may underestimate your need for bug spray, so it's kind of nice it's included in the small assortment. You'll see liquid fuel and canister fuel, but you probably won't find the small canister with only 100 grams or 4 ounces of fuel, even though it is listed here. As an FYI, I used a single new 200 gram or 8 ounce fuel canister for all of Kungsleden. It ran out on my last night making my last cup of tea. I use my stove only for dinners, so adjust your expectations higher if you have a hot drink in the morning or other hot meals. Check out the snacks, chips and cookies. Remember this list when we get to the large assortment. Canned foods are heavy, and you'll need to carry out the empty can. If you want to go this way, they have a good selection of fruit cocktail, beans, crushed tomatoes, corn, hot dogs, and canned meats. The canned hot dogs are actually pretty good. I had them with mashed potatoes at Saltolukta. In the pantry, you'll find freeze-dried meals, pasta, and instant mashed potatoes. A note on the pasta. If you plan to cook pasta, you need to boil water for 10 minutes each time you prepare it. It's not really an efficient use of that heavy fuel that you carried into the backcountry. Of course, it's up to you, just so you know. There is a lot of water everywhere. So using drinking water for cooking pasta and then pouring it out is not at all the same problem that it might be on some other trails. There's plenty of water everywhere. You'll also hopefully find toilet paper, matches, batteries, maps, and compasses in the shop. Let's compare the small assortment list quickly with the large assortment list, which is in English. You'll pass a lot of these mountain cabins with a large assortment on Kungsleden. I won't go through the large assortment list in detail, but note that it's 2 pages long compared to the small assortment's 1 page. The candy list is a lot longer, as is the snacks list. Your sandwich options are more favorable, and there might even be gluten-free bread for sale. You can even get taco seasoning in the pantry. At the end of this video, we'll develop a budget for your resupply during your Kungsleden hike. Every mountain station and every mountain cabin along Kungsleden can usually accept credit cards and debit cards. This is going to affect how much cash reserves you need to bring. Again, the links to all of these pages are in the video notes. Now we're going to get into the weeds a little and talk about a specific strategy for your resupply. You'll adjust your strategy during your hike as you find out how fast you can hike and how fast you want to hike. I'm going to assume that you'll start hiking northbound from Hemavan at a rate of 10 miles or 16 kilometers every day. That's a great starting pace. The same logic works if you decide to hike southbound into the sun. Guess in the comments why I decided to hike northbound from Hemavan. A fundamental part of the resupply strategy will be to always have 1 day of extra food for the entire hike. Always having that extra day of food ensures that you'll have food in case plans change or an emergency occurs. At each location, you'll buy enough food to hike to the next resupply source and still have that extra day worth of food left. That's the strategy anyway. You can decide what that extra food is. Maybe you pick up some kind of snack bar that you don't really like, but you're willing to eat when you're hungry. Pick something that will tolerate the abuse from hanging out in the bottom of your food bag for a whole month. It's also a good idea to pick something that does not require hot water, cooking, or any kind of preparation. If you're eating your extra food in an emergency situation, that situation could include that you can't cook for yourself. Each store or shop will have its own hours to be open. The mountain stations are open the most. The people working at the front desk run the store simultaneously. If the front desk is open, the store is open. Mountain cabin hours are more limited, but align with the expected hiking traffic. Inquire each time you resupply about the opening hours of your next resupply to get the most up-to-date information. You may need to adjust how much you buy at each stop based on your daily hiking plans too. If you like to hike late into the night, you may arrive at a mountain cabin long after its store has closed for the day. You'll need to carry dinner for that day and breakfast for the next. In this resupply strategy table, you're going to start at Hemavan with 2 days worth of food. The 1 day that's going to take you to get to Vitterskalet and your 1 day of emergency food. At Vitterskalet, it's 17 miles or 20-something kilometers to Tarnafur. That's 2 days. It might be 1. We did it in 1, but boy, it was a long day. So kind of plan that it might be 2. So you need to buy 2 days because you've eaten the one you started with and you want to keep your emergency. At Tarnafur, it's also about the same distance to Egert. So buy 2 days again, hike 2 days to Amranes, but now you need to buy 4 days worth of food because it's a long way to Aldefström. In Aldefström, you're only a long day from Jakvik, and it's worth a long day to get there. The store is wonderful. Leaving Jakvik towards Kvikjok, you're going to pass Vronatviken, but that's a light resupply. That's not a really good resupply. So in Jakvik, you do need to buy 4 days worth of food, and you could plan to top off with some snacks, that kind of thing, at Vronatviken. Hey, it's hard to say. Kvikjok, plan to spend an extra day there, spend a 0 there. And that's how it goes all the way up to Abisko. I knew you were going to ask, what's it going to cost and how much cash should I bring? I see a lot of people say they hike Kungsleden in less than 25 days, and that matches my experience. Let's call it 28 days, which is 4 weeks. We're estimating, so going higher is going to be better than running out of money. You'll buy extra snacks and beer with the buffer between your actual hiking days and our artificial 28 days. Hike fast if you want a lot of treats. Remember, some town and restaurant meals are going to be really expensive, so keep that in mind. It is not easy to come up with a total cost estimate. Some costs are per meal. Some costs are per package of unknown quantity like bread slices. We have some guesses rather than reliable estimates in our future. I use the assortment list provided by the STF, or Swedish Tourist Association, to come up with a menu. So for breakfast, you're going to drink coffee or tea, eat some oatmeal, have a snack. Now, you might not eat the snack with breakfast, but sometime in the morning, you'll probably have a snack. So breakfast adds up to someplace around 50 to 60 crowns. For lunch, you're going to have a sandwich. So bread, cheese, meat. You have a snack too, sometime in the afternoon, and that's going to count in as lunch. Again, we're up around 60 crowns. For dinner, I'm going to assume that you eat a freeze-dried meal, which is 130 crowns. You can eat a lot cheaper than that, but I want to make sure you don't run out of money. So let's assume on the expensive side. You can have some crisps that cost about 25 crowns. And for crisps, for the people on the west side of the Atlantic, those are like potato chips. Also, you can have a snack or a dessert kind of a thing for dinner. And so your dinner actually runs up to about 200 crowns. Daily food estimate is going to be about 300, 310 crowns. For our hypothetical 28 days, that becomes 8,680 crowns. So that's the answer to one of the questions. The estimate for how much it'll cost you to resupply along Kungsleden is going to be around 9,000 Swedish crowns. If you're playing along on the home game, that's about $900 US. That's about $30 per day per person, and that's really reasonable. Most days on vacation, I'd be happy to eat that cheaply. For a 9,000 crown resupply budget, carrying 2,000 Swedish crowns in cash should be more than you will actually need and will be a source of cash for other expected and unexpected expenses too. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button and share with one of your adventurous friends. If you're planning to hike Kungsleden, consider picking up a copy of my book, John's Dad Hikes Kungsleden, The Guide to Hiking the King's Trail. It includes background information so that you can make all the decisions you need to make in the sequence that you need to make them. It's a How to Hike Kungsleden book. It was frustrating that I had to look everywhere to get information I needed to plan my hike. Luckily, I speak Swedish, so I could actually look everywhere. Not everyone is so lucky. I assembled the book with the intention that it would be the only place that you need to look to be successful. Next week, we'll talk about the boat crossings on Kungsleden. It will be a shorter video. There are only 7 required boat crossings and only a few optional boat crossings. Your third Swedish word is boat. Boat crossings. Guess what? Boat's an easy word. So far, I don't see a reason why you should stay at home. Buy a plane ticket, throw some gear in your backpack, grab your passport, head to the car. See you in Sweden. Howdy hi, this is John's dad. Welcome back to my series on planning for and hiking the 300-mile long King's Trail in northern Sweden. In past videos, we've covered general information to kind of hook you so you know you want to hike it. Creating resupply boxes, shipping those resupply boxes to yourself, and buying food along the trail. Today we're going to cover the many water crossings. There's water everywhere. There's so much water that some hikers don't even carry water with them because they can lean down and fill a cup almost anywhere. This is a real typical cup that you find. Some rubberized cups that collapse, they're real common now too. There are 4 kinds of water crossings on the Kungsleden. There are bridges, you can wade, you can hire a motorboat, and you can row a boat. We'll talk about bridges first because they're pretty typical. After a while, you won't be able to remember how many bridges you crossed even later on the same day. Some bridges are sturdy and have railings. Some are just long metal platforms or wooden platforms for you to walk across. Some are a little past their prime, but you won't have a lot of options. Time to get a little water out of the running stream. It would be a shame to lose Ryan in the water, but he is only from Michigan. This is where I decided to camp last night. It was raining pretty hard. I didn't feel like crossing two bridges in the rain, slippery rocks. And this was the closest flat space. And it wasn't exactly flat either. Going northbound from Hemavan to Abisko, the first significant bridges you cross are Lake Tarnefre. These are visible in satellite pictures, and I had sat and stared at them for hours. I'd been looking forward to crossing them for an entire year before I started my hike. Just before I left home for Kungsleden, though, I saw that they were being repaired from winter damage and that temporary rowboats had been put in place. When we crossed the bridges, they were definitely still being repaired, but we didn't have to use any rowboats. The view... Sorry for the interruption. Plan to take a lot of pictures from the center of those bridges, because when you're going over the bridges, for the most part, you're going to be below tree line, and as you go across the bridge, you'll have a wide open view up the river, sometimes beautiful waterfalls, maybe a beautiful lake with maybe the sun setting in the distance. So be prepared to take some pictures from the bridges. When you're wading across shallow creeks and rivers, you may just rock hop and sometimes maybe step in the shallow parts. Your boots may not get wet. When the water is a little bit deeper than your knees, you need to be real careful, even if the water doesn't seem to be moving very fast. Rocks, especially under the water surface, can be real slippery, even if they appear dry. But if they're under the water surface, I'm going to bet that they don't appear dry, but you know what I mean. The moss growing on some of them will look solidly attached, but feel like ball bearings as soon as you put your weight on them. Take small steps. Keep 3 points of solid contact if using hiking poles. If you don't use the hiking poles, make sure you maintain at least one solid point of contact at all times. And before you start hiking, take a look at this video that tells you how to cross raging rivers. My favorite way to cross water is on a motorboat. 6 of the 7 water crossings that require a boat can be done by motorboat. Some of these have optional rowboats too that you can use, and I'm going to cover rowboats next. The Kungsleden blazes take you straight to the dock or the beach where you need to be. Finding the exact place to cross the water is nothing to worry about. When you get off the boat on the other side, you just keep following the blazes. It's a painless transition. You'll pay, depending on which way you're going, either before or after the water crossing. Usually they take cash, and we'll talk about that in a second. Wear the water preserver they give you. The water you're crossing was a solid part of a glacier just a few hours ago. It's cold. You'll survive less than 15 minutes if you fall in. Often they take only cash at the motorboat crossings, so some of your 2,000 crown cash reserve will be used for motorboats. So now it makes a little bit more sense why I kept rounding up the food budget and the food reserves higher and higher. You can expect the motorboat will cost 300 crowns each. Some are a lot cheaper, but some cost a little bit more. But 300 crowns is a good planning number. The mountain shops we discussed in the previous video stay open to align with the motorboat crossings. So when you get to the other side, you can resupply and then head out as far as you want to go. You can also stay at the cabin or maybe camp someplace near the water. My book has a whole section about the boats. There's a detailed table of boat contact information, costs, and procedures. Sometimes you show up at the dock and raise a small flag that the boat owner can see with binoculars. Sometimes you call or send an SMS. Sometimes you have to call or send that SMS from a sign pounded into the ground next to Kungsleden at the top of a hill a few kilometers before the water, because there's no cell service in the valley. At one point, there's a radio telephone for you to use. I had no trouble using my Garmin inReach to send and receive SMS messages with the motorboat people. I recommend that you write all of the boat times and contact information right on the map at the crossing. That way, as you're planning your day, you can actually see what time you need to get to the water to get that afternoon boat crossing. You can either hurry or take it easy because you're not going to make it. If your plans don't align with the normally scheduled motorboats, they might be willing to make a special run just for you at a special price, and you can negotiate that price directly with them at the time. We took a couple of the optional motorboat rides too. We had a tight schedule to meet for our first week, so we jumped ahead a few kilometers to ensure our success. The cabin host at Sutor suggested that we ride with Torbjorn into Ammernes for a couple 100 crowns. She called Torbjorn and arranged it for us. Torbjorn is middle-aged, maybe 65. He and his family have lived in the area for generations. At shallow parts of the lake, he would slow down and tell us all kinds of local stories and folklore.
It's a bit shallow.
He got a little teary-eyed as he talked about his parents and about how much he and his siblings missed them. He slowed as we passed a rustic cabin, resting about halfway up one of the many hills. I unfortunately need to contrast our ride with Torbjorn, which is just absolutely wonderful. I totally recommend it, with our next motorboat ride leaving Beverholmen into Adolfström. Taking this optional ride put us firmly in the green for our schedule, but I regret doing it. I would have rather walked the miles. The young kids driving the boat were in a big hurry to drop us off and get back home. There was no inkling of the typical Swedish politeness. They even yelled at us from the dock to eat faster because they were ready to go. We were holding them up. They ran the boat at full throttle, even around the sharp bends. There was no concept of us being paying customers or even being human passengers. I point this out not because this is something you should expect. In fact, you should not expect this. This was so unusual. I keep coming back to it in my memories. It was so out of place. It should just not have happened, and I certainly hope you don't have that experience. One of the water crossings is 9 kilometers or almost 6 miles. You get to decide what you want to do for the day. You can rest by the water, waiting for one of the scheduled motorboats I just talked about, or you can spend your day in a clunky rowboat battling gusty winds and heavy waves. Am I revealing too much of my opinion on this topic? I rowed just once, and that was north of Jakvik, where there is no motorboat option. You must row the 1 kilometer, maybe half-mile stretch of water. It wasn't bad, but the wind was fairly calm. It was fun. I hadn't been in a rowboat since Boy Scout camp at Two Bear Scout Reservation near Wyalusing, Wisconsin in the summer of 1972, when I earned my rowboat merit badge. Some skills never die, but my rowing skills were definitely on life support. Using the rowboats is free, but they do come at a cost. There are a minimum of 3 rowboats staged at each water crossing. When you have crossed the water in a rowboat and before you continue your hike, there must be at least 1 rowboat on each side. If you come to the water crossing and there is only 1 rowboat on your side, you must row that boat to the other side, tie on and tow one of those rowboats back to your side and tie it up. Then you can, on the 3rd time, you can now cross the water and keep going. I hike northbound primarily to have the sun at my back, but since most people hike southbound, they tend to bring the rowboats to the south side of the water crossings. That's something for you to consider as you're planning your hike. Rowing a boat is not without its risks. The boats are heavy and sturdy. It's unlikely that they'll capsize even in rough water or high winds. Since they are heavy, though, it does take a lot of power to pull them through the water. Any strong currents or strong winds may deposit you somewhere that you never wanted to be. STF, or the Swedish Tourist Association, removed the rowboats from one crossing a couple years ago because too many people were making friends with the reindeer herder really far downstream. And don't hope that a strong wind from one direction will offset a strong water current from the other. Do you really think you'll be that lucky? They're going to join forces and work against you. If you have never rowed a boat before, search for a video to see how it's done. There are tons of them out there on YouTube. It's not difficult, but basically, you sit backwards in the boat. Your back will be towards the pointy or the front part of the boat. You'll pull the oars to your chest. Only one person rows at a time. If you decide to have one person pull on each oar, you're going to go in circles. The German hikers that helped me out at the Jakvik crossing were still laughing about the previous couple who tried to share the rowing duties. So, if one person gets tired when rowing, you can carefully swap seats, keep a low center of gravity, but don't try to row at the same time unless you want some German hikers laughing at you too. Row out a little from shore and then turn around, point the bow of the boat, the little pointy part, at your target. And that's going to be where you want to be on the other side of the water. Most likely it'll be a little bit upstream, maybe upwind a little bit, because they're going to work against you as you go across the water. With experience, you'll get better at aiming. But since you're still watching this, I'm going to assume you have little or no experience. As you're out there, you've got your boat aimed where you want it to be. Look over the stern or the back of the boat, in the middle of it, and pick some kind of a landmark. Maybe it's the dock, a tree, a shelter, maybe a big rock. And as you're rowing, that's what you're using to aim. Keep at the back of the boat, aimed at that tree, aimed at the dock, maybe the shelter. And every once in a while, look over, and maybe you need to adjust your aiming point. Roll for 2-3 minutes and then check it out. 2-3 minutes, check it out. Just keep making small adjustments and you'll end up on the other side. And now you're thinking, what about that 9-kilometer long crossing? Don't worry, they got that thought out. For those, there are buoys in the water every once in a while. And you actually row from one buoy to the next rather than trying to row all the way across the water. One to the next, and it leads you right to where you need to be. So it's not a big deal. Well, thanks for watching. Next week, we'll begin covering a hodgepodge of topics to start tying things together. These are things that you need to understand, but it sure doesn't none of them warrant a full video all by themselves. Be sure to leave any comments or questions down below. The Kungsleden hiking season is quickly approaching, so I'll get back to you right away. Please hike and subscribe. Share the video with one of your adventurous friends that might want to do this hike with you. And don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss a single video. If you are planning to hike Kungsleden, then you need to pick up a copy of my book. YouTube is not the best way to share the detailed information you need for planning your hike. In the book, the tables in it, the checklist, that's exactly the best way to do it. So, I'll see you next week. Howdy hi, this is John Stad. Welcome back to my video series on planning for and hiking the King's Trail in northern Sweden. The King's Trail is known as Kungsleden in Swedish. The previous videos in this series covered general information and beautiful pictures to get you hooked on this trail. This is a trail you want to hike. Some people get hungry when hiking for a month, so a couple of the videos show you how to find food in the Swedish mountains when you are far from civilization. It's not easy, but it's not as hard as you may fear. Whatever you do, don't plan to carry all the food you'll need for a whole hike. Here's a link to the playlist that holds all of those videos and some more. Don't plan on carrying a lot of water either. There's water everywhere, and there's even a video covering how to safely cross all of that water in the playlist. It's worth a glance so you get the basic ideas. In this video, I'm going to cover a hodgepodge of remaining details that are critical to understand, but each in themselves doesn't warrant a video of their own. The video notes have links to the different chapters in this video, so you can jump around or come back to review anything. Definitely add your suggestions and questions below. The hiking season for Kungsleden is quickly approaching, so I'll get back to you right away. The first thing I'm going to cover is clothes. Someday I may do a full video on the gear and clothes you need for Kungsleden, but if you want additional guidance before your hike next summer, consider grabbing a Kindle version of my book. The text discusses how you decide what clothes you need, and there are appendices in the back that give you checklists so you don't miss a thing. Swedes have a saying that roughly translates to, "There is no bad weather, there are only bad clothes." You need to bring the clothes appropriate for the terrain and the climate. Basically, when the trails are not smooth and flat, they can be rocky, muddy, and maybe even covered with water. Some sturdy waterproof boots are appropriate. I would also never consider hiking Kungsleden without trekking poles, but hike your own hike. Maybe you don't need them. It rains on about half of the days that you'll be on Kungsleden. Bring your waterproof shell or a raincoat, and very importantly, rain pants. Check out my Monday Mistakes video on why I insist that you bring rain pants. The temperature can range from 25 Fahrenheit, maybe 5 below Celsius, to 75 Fahrenheit or 25 Celsius on the same day. You'll probably notice too that the wind blows all day, every day. So bring the appropriate layers to keep you warm and dry in all of those conditions. Some people hike from cabin to cabin and don't bring a tent. This lightens their load quite a bit. They assume they'll make it safely to the next cabin every day. I think you need to bring some kind of shelter, even if you don't plan to use it. Plans can change and you don't always control when or why they change. Don't bring a hammock. Take a look at these pictures and guess why. Between Ammarnäs and Kvikkjokk, there are no STF or Swedish Tourist Association cabins. So unless you can hike more than 100 miles or 160 kilometers in one day, then you're going to need to make some alternative plans for a place to sleep. A tent makes this chore real easy, and there are some private hostels along that stretch too. Don't assume you can go cabin to cabin when there aren't any cabins though. Leave your flashlight and headlamps at home. Even at the end of the hiking season in September, it doesn't get dark enough that you would ever need extra light, even in your tent. Instead, you may want to bring a sleep mask to cover your eyes because the sun will be up when you go to bed and it will be up when you wake up. It may or may not set while you're sleeping, but it never gets so far below the horizon that it gets dark. Talking about things to leave at home brings us to water treatment. I always treat my drinking water, regardless of what locals may advise. The water on Kungsleden is supposed to be pure enough to just drink with a cup when you get thirsty. I saw lots of people do that with no ill effects. I also met a French-speaking couple here at this bridge who were begging others for Imodium because he had gotten a bad case of diarrhea. It's your choice, but I would recommend you bring lightweight purification tablets and leave your filter at home. Bring a roll of toilet paper, some baby wipes, and a trowel in case you need to use them when an outhouse is not in sight. I don't want to get too intimate or personal, but I found the bathroom facility spaced just about right along all of Kungsleden. Not perfectly spaced, but frequent enough that I was never forced to dig a cat hole. Came close one time. You may not be that lucky, so come prepared. Airlines are responsible for the contents of any bag you check, but not the outer bag itself. Damage to the outer bag is considered normal wear and tear. Therefore, your backpack needs to be inside some kind of a duffel bag, some kind of a covering to protect it. A lot of people buy a throwaway bag at IKEA for about $5, $6, $7 US. It seems like a shame to just throw it away when you arrive, and it leaves you with a problem at the end of your hike too. What do you put your backpack in for the trip home? I might have an option for you, so hang on. I picked up a couple Osprey Airporter duffel bags several years ago. My initial impression was that they were too fragile to withstand the anticipated abuse, but I was wrong. We've been to several different continents more than once. They survived our backpacking trip to Alaska. The Osprey Airporter is not cheap. You will not want to throw it away, and you won't want to carry it on a long hike either. Hang on, I've got an idea coming. Some people have good luck going to a secondhand sporting goods store. You can often find a used equipment bag more than tough enough for what you need. You won't need to feel guilty about throwing it away, or maybe gifting it to someone staying at the same hostel who needs it for their trip home. You may already know this, but there are actually a lot of IKEA stores in Sweden. Unfortunately, none of them are near Kungsleden. You can throw away or give away your IKEA bag at the beginning of your hike, and maybe buy a replacement in your gateway city for your trip home. There's IKEA in Stockholm, for example. Check out my video on sending yourself resupply boxes, because you could put your IKEA bag, your Osprey Airporter, duffel bag, or equipment bag in a box and ship it to yourself at your final trailhead. I've done this lots of times on my hikes. It works out really good. The only risk is that you might need to abandon that package if you end your hike early due to injury or for some other reason. You cannot bring any kind of fuel on an airplane. Period. No exceptions. Don't even try. You can't put it in your carry-on bag and you can't put it in your checked bags, but calm down. There are plenty of stores where you can buy fuel on your way to Kungsleden and on Kungsleden. Your stove also must be clean and free of any fumes. You can check it or carry it on, it doesn't matter, but don't get caught with a stinky stove. Your batteries must be in your carry-on bag. They require this because sometimes batteries catch on fire. They want any fires to be in the airplane cabin where the crew has a reasonable chance of putting them out. An alternative might be a movie based on a true story called Fire at 40,000 Feet. Have you ever wondered who might play you in a movie? I'm thinking Bill Murray would play me. What do you think? There's sometimes limits on how much battery power you can bring on board, so check directly with all of the airlines you'll be flying on. They have different rules and they don't care what airline you flew on to reach them. Sharp things like tent stakes, trekking poles, and knives need to be in your checked bag. Imagine, if you will, a movie called Hijacked at 40,000 feet. That's what the airport security people are doing. You need to pack sharp things carefully too, so they do not get bent or poke through the side of your backpack. All roads to Kungsleden run through Stockholm. It doesn't matter if you're flying or taking a train. You have to go through Stockholm to get anywhere in Sweden's Lapland. You ask, hey, what about Narvik? That's in Norway and basically walking distance to Kungsleden's northern terminus at Abisko. Narvik's the same. People in Norway who want to go to Abisko via Narvik must first go through Stockholm. This isn't a problem. Stockholm has a great international connections and it's easy to get into and around. It's filled with history and culture. I'd recommend going through Stockholm even if it wasn't your only reasonable option. I say reasonable because there might be limited flights from outside Sweden to Kiruna, which is located more than an hour from Abisko. Kiruna is an interesting city to visit. Right now, Kiruna is having a moving experience, and they're eager to tell you all the details. So as you explore your options, maybe Kiruna works for you as a gateway city. It's possible. You still have to get to Kungsleden from Kiruna, though. You don't know how many days your hike will take. You can estimate and you can guess. It'll take somewhere between 2 weeks and a month. Give yourself several extra days of buffer so that you don't need to hurry. Injuries in the Swedish mountains can be far more serious than the same injuries in civilization. Be careful when hiking, unless you want to wait in pain for a couple days for a helicopter ride. Hopefully you'll finish early. Before you leave, look at a map and research things you might want to do if you have extra time. Look especially at these cities. But don't limit yourself to major tourist attractions. Scandinavia has a lot to offer in both urban and rural environments. Small towns can be very interesting, and you'll find that people will welcome you. Allemansrätten in Sweden and similar laws in other countries give a person the right to access, walk, cycle, ride, ski, and camp on any land, with the exception of private gardens and yards, the immediate vicinity of homes, and land under cultivation or being farmed. There are other reasonable restrictions possible in national parks and other areas that need to protect wildlife. The maxim which most easily explains allemansrätten is do not disturb, do not destroy. Many Swedish people consider this to be a human right. In addition to legal protections, allemansrätten provides guidance on how to roam in nature. It's a lot like leave no trace principles. You won't be surprised. Allemansrätten lets you set up a tent for 1 or maybe 2 nights, light small fires if it's safe and allowed where you are, go fishing with the proper license, ride your bike, ski, launch unmotorized boats on private lakes, ponds, and rivers, pick berries, flowers, and mushrooms that are not otherwise prohibited by what or where they are. Check first with the locals. I ate wild blueberries and lingonberries everywhere. I even got to eat cloudberries with some French-speaking campers I took a break with. Check out this video that explains allemansrätten in English. You can tell they had a lot of fun making it. So please hike and subscribe. I hope you're eager to get started on the plans for your own hike of Kungsleden, so share this video with one of your adventurous friends. Hit that bell too so you know when the rest of the videos start dropping. Next week, we'll begin the first section of an actual Kungsleden hike from Hemavan in the south to Järvik. It takes about a week in real time, but we're going to do it a lot faster. I got to eat pizza and ice cream in Järvik. I got to eat palt too, spelled P-A-L-T. Try that if you get to Järvik. See you later, bye. Howdy, hi, I'm John's dad. Thanks for checking out my backpacking channel. In this video series, we're covering everything it takes to plan for and hike the King's Trail, or Kungsleden, in northern Sweden. The entire series of videos is in this playlist. They cover everything you'll need to go from your couch at home to the Kungsleden trailheads you will select for your starting and ending points. In this video, we start an actual Kungsleden hike beginning in the States. I hiked all the way from Hemavan in the south to Abisko in the north. As many do, I choose to hike Nobo or northbound so the sun would always be at my sides or at my back as it makes its way around the horizon, seldom passing below the horizon even at night. Hiking north illuminates the views in front of the hikers, making for a more beautiful hike and some awesome pictures. Along the way, I will introduce you to many of my friends. The first will be my unicorn, who my grandchildren named Uni. Uni is a girl unicorn. She and I travel everywhere together. When we have Wi-Fi or cell service, we send pictures of our adventures back to my grandchildren. Uni and I did a lot of practice hikes and shakedown campouts together. We dialed in our gear to perfection, with some exceptions. When the day came, we flew from our home to the Newark airport outside of New York City. Before too long, we were on our way to Brussels for another layover. We fit our trip in just perfectly between all of the COVID-19 restrictions and shutdowns. Uni hung out while I took a nap. Uni thought I looked funny, but I had to wear a mask, and I needed to cover my eyes to sleep. When we landed in Copenhagen, all of our baggage came out on the conveyor belt, except my backpack holding all of my gear and food. I was able to come back to Denmark the next day to pick it up, though. No worries. Everyone was really friendly and helpful through the whole process. Uni got to fika with some of her Swedish relatives. A fika in Sweden is having coffee and a small treat with some friends, a new word for you. Uni doesn't really like coffee, so she had a shot of whiskey instead. It made me cough, but she liked it just fine. Once we recovered from the whiskey, we headed out to the store to pick up some last-minute supplies like soft cheese and bacon in a tube. It is shelf-stable and very tasty on everything from bread to crackers, or even just squirted straight into your mouth if you're not sharing the tube with someone else. I decided to send myself 4 resupply boxes along Kungsleden. I covered the details of that in an earlier video, and I also do it in great detail in my book that's available on Amazon Kindle. With help, I finalized the boxes and got them on their way to Kungsleden. My Swedish friend Lars agreed to hike the first week with me, so we coordinated our schedules and we decided to have our first full day on Kungsleden be August 1st. This happened to be exactly 1 year to the day after my total knee replacement surgery. First, we took the train from Gothenburg to Stockholm and had dinner at McDonald's. Then the night train, overnight up to Umeå, in an hour or so, change over to a bus for 5.5 hour bus ride to Hemavan. The 5-hour bus ride from Umeå to Hemavan put us less than a kilometer from the southern terminus of Kungsleden. We quickly ate some food and used the last porcelain toilets we would see for weeks. It was a magical and almost out-of-body experience for us. Uni and I had been planning this hike for almost a decade. We were suddenly standing below the sign we had been dreaming about for years. I felt quite out of place. My usual hiking trips are in forests with occasional views of hills and farm fields. When bad weather attacks, I can't really see it. Wind, rain, snow, and even hail reaches me after being filtered by hills and trees. We were above the tree line. Fog and clouds everywhere. Rain coming down gently but consistently. The trail filling with cold water. Swirling clouds sometimes revealed ominous mountain ranges in the distance. It was tempting to call the hike off and follow the trail veering to the left at the top of the hill to the bar. It's in a ski resort that overlooks Hemavan. No one would know if the conditions were really as bad as I would tell them. Except Lars and Uni, they were there. It wasn't that bad. I decided to continue. Everything was new. I didn't know what to expect, what was normal, what was unusual. Was I prepared? I certainly started to doubt myself. We left the iconic Kungsleden sign just north of Hemavan and headed up into the Swedish mountains. The summer Kungsleden is well marked by red or orange blazes painted on rocks or on signposts. You can also follow the trail on the ground. You're not the first one to walk this way. There are other trails marked in a similar manner that crisscross Kungsleden all the way to Abisko, so refer to your map regularly. It was along this stretch of trail that I began to realize that my new Gore-Tex boots were not actually waterproof. Even though Uni and I did many practice hikes, none of them were in the rain. Each step in a puddle flowed water between my toes. This would become a big problem in a couple weeks. We visited our first STF cabin at Vitterskalet, where the stern cabin host shooed us on our way immediately after we visited their little store. COVID restrictions prevented us from warming ourselves near the fireplace. I delayed my departure just a few seconds to absorb as much warmth as I could. We moved on another kilometer or so north and set up our tent on the west side of a river for the first time with others making the same journey. A freeze-dried dinner and an early bedtime for us. After dinner, we met our neighbor Ryan, who was studying at the university in Sweden. This formed our first tramily.
This is my first morning on Kungsleden, my first morning in the Swedish mountains, a river going by it, mountains as high up as you can see. And the sunrise over our home.
In the morning, our new friend Ryan was gone already. We thought he was far ahead of us, never to be seen again, but he was actually behind us by a few kilometers. He backtracked to Vitterskalet to buy some food after the store opened. He caught up to us before noon. We hiked north in the valley carved by ancient glaciers past Suterskalet to Suterstugan, where we got lingonberry saft or fruit juice from the kind cabin host. After a rest, we pulled on our heavy backpacks and kept going into the unknown. The cabin host had told us we would find good camping on the west side of the trail before the lake. We saw the Vietnamese girls from the bus camped in a prime spot on the lake. In hindsight, we should have camped with them. There was plenty of room for a dozen tents. Our assumption was that there would be another equally perfect campsite in a couple hundred meters. We pushed on but came to Tarnafjordstugana before any suitable campsites appeared, 20 miles or more than 30 kilometers on our second day. We picked a campsite down near the lake. I was exhausted and stumbling. I couldn't eat dinner. I was asleep about a half an hour after he put up our tent. I woke early as usual. Uni was not feeling well. All of the strenuous hiking yesterday caused her to barf up all over the outside of our tent. She felt much better and helped clean up the mess. We decided to take it a little easier today. We are in for a beautiful day of hiking surrounded by mountains, water, and reindeer. The sky was clear. None of the hills were difficult. I want to talk a little about the mud pits along Kungsleden. I complain about them a lot in my book, and they are never far from the minds or boots of the hikers. This is a fairly typical mud pit. Most of them are not actually filled with mud. You can walk straight through them or easily avoid them by a tiny detour by stepping up on a small rock perfectly placed there for your convenience. You could actually dip your cup into most of them and drink delicious water. There's often a small current running downhill from the thawing glacier up above to the local stream. It keeps the water clean and fresh. There are exceptions. Some are deep, and the mud will suck the boots off of your feet. Some can be difficult to navigate around. Sometimes your only option is to march straight through. Wooden walkways have been built over marshy sensitive areas to protect the plants, but I'm not sure the goal is to help us hikers. But I enjoy the fast and smooth trails the wooden platforms provide. The goal of this video series is twofold. First, it's to encourage you to take on Kungsleden so you can appreciate the experiences that few other people get to enjoy. Second, is to give you an accurate view of what a hike could be like. In support of the first purpose, let's say that those huge mud pits, truly filled with mud, many meters wide and hard to get around, are rare, and you won't even notice them on your way past. Yeah, let's say that. Compared to yesterday, our short 9-mile saunter today seemed easy. We hiked downhill towards Servastugana and decided to rent a room inside. I felt very comfortable here. The cabin host was explaining something to me in Swedish about the extra crocks they keep at the door in case someone needs to go outside to use the outhouse in the middle of the night. I totally misunderstood what she meant. We both realized it at the same time. I apologized in Swedish with my heavy American accent, saying, "Swedish is not my native language." "Oh, verkligen," she responded. We both laughed. Like I said, it was a very welcoming cabin. Our cabin host suggested that we might want to take a boat ride in the morning to Ammernes with Torbjorn. He's a local guy who gives shuttles on his little boat. It would cut off about 8 kilometers of hiking. We had a tight schedule, so skipping ahead sounded like a good idea. She arranged for us to be picked up at 10 a.m. so we could sleep in the next day. We took our time getting ready this morning. Uni and I checked out our hiking plans for the day, and she enjoyed some hot chocolate. The mountain cabin bunk rooms are not heated, and she was still a little chilled. We wandered toward the boat dock so that we would get there at least an hour before Torbjorn. We did not want him to wait for us. At the intersection of Kungsleden and the spur trail to the boat dock, we ran into an old German guy who has hiked every long-distance trail you could think of. He had sewn patches all over his previously ultralight backpack to prove it. Just as we sat down in the warm sun to wait, Torbjorn pulled up in a small boat. He had also come early so that we would not have to wait for him. Within just a couple minutes, we had our life preservers on, our backpack stowed in the bottom of the boat, and we were headed east through Little and Big Churltrasket lakes. Uni didn't need to wear a life preserver because she floats naturally. Torbjorn went slowly in the shallow parts and told us stories of life in the area. He talked mostly in Swedish, but tried to help Ryan understand all the good stuff by speaking broken English as best he could. I respect anyone who can speak 2 or more languages. It's not as easy as it may sound. Torbjorn pointed out his family's cabin halfway up a hill, where he and his siblings still gather on a regular basis. They have a close family, and they miss their parents very much. We helped Torbjorn pull his boat up on the shore, and then we all crammed into his tiny Volvo for the ride into town. My knee still hurts. His interesting narration of the route continued into Amherst. Amherst is not very big. The grocery store doubles as a general store with tools and spare parts in addition to food and other grocery items. My grandchildren received some postcards I bought and sent from here too. My first resupply box was waiting for me as planned. I moved all of the food into my backpack. It sure was heavy again. We had lunch sitting outside in the sun at Amherst Guide. A local who was driving by saw us and stopped to talk. This was typical small-town friendliness. When he learned we were from Gothenburg, he started telling us puns, because that's what the people from Gothenburg are famous for. Ryan had a room reserved in a hostel, so Lars and I headed uphill out of town. We didn't know if we were going to see Ryan again.
This is our campsite north of Amherst. Just off the trail, we find a nice flat spot. Might not be perfect, but Allemansrätten lets us camp here. And it's really nice.
We were protected from the wind by the birch trees overnight. Even though it was a little chilly, we were not cold during our quick breakfast. We worked our ways out of the trees, turned left on Kungsleden, and continued north. Kungsleden climbs up over a fantastic bald as it makes its way to Ravfallstugan. We decided to take a shortcut via Höbecken, though, to pick up another half day of hiking time. It turned out we didn't need that extra time, but we didn't know that yet. I wish we had gone past the beautiful Ravfalls. The trail down to Höbecken opened to expansive views. As we descended, we entered the trees again. We took a long fika, much longer than an hour when we got there. Exhaustion seemed to be building on me. I needed frequent rest breaks. We headed north along the river, mostly on four-wheel drive trails, until we rejoined Kungsleden. We passed beautiful ponds and could see blue skies and mountains for the rest of our day. We crossed several substantial bridges today. The summer and winter trails ran together. At the top of a bald where two trails come together, we followed the sign to the north and decided that we had hiked enough for today and started looking for a place to camp. Down in a slight valley was a lagoon near a cabin. It was a perfect place to set up camp, and the only way to improve it would have been to add 25 degrees on either the Fahrenheit or Celsius scales. It wouldn't matter. The wind was cold. Lars was able to get a cell signal at the top of a rise. He called his fiancée on a different continent. Uni and I enjoyed the slow sunset and tucked in for the night. Hiking every day with my heavy backpack was wearing me out. I slept well. It was a cold night last night, but I was warm enough. I imagine that the family whose cabin we camped near must really enjoy their lagoon. Swimming, canoeing. We broke camp and headed back uphill to Kungsleden. We saw herds and herds of reindeer today. We moved slowly and carefully whenever they were near. We hiked along the west side of a series of lakes today. We were about halfway up the hill. Even so, the mud pits got on my bad side. They were atypical. Every mud pit so far had been finite. They all had a start and an end. They all had a defined width, even if it was really wide. These mud pits today were pretty impressive. Be aware that there is a bird sanctuary, Tolmejora, near Snutli. Yeah, you try to pronounce them. You cannot leave the trail except at Snutli. This is an exception to the Allemansrätten law we've discussed several times. We took a break at the trail leading to Snutli. I met a French-speaking woman near the outhouse. We had a nice conversation using a combination of her broken English and my high school French. Uni wanted a snack, so we pulled out the dehydrated apple slices we made with honey and cinnamon. I didn't think unicorns would like them, but Uni couldn't get enough. The rest of the day was windy, but the clear skies gave us unlimited views and kept the mosquitoes at bay for the most part. We were ready to stop hiking for the day and got an excellent recommendation for some hikers going the other way. We set up our tent just above the bridge so that Ryan would have room for his tent too, if he caught up to us as we expected. We intentionally made a smoky fire to discourage the mosquitoes. This was the only day I used my bug net along the whole Kungsleden.
This is what our campsite view was like this morning.
The mosquitoes were nowhere to be found today. A Pop-Tart and some homemade coconut macaroons for breakfast, and we were off. We were getting into the daily rhythm of hiking. Get up early, eat, pack everything into its right place, verify the day's hiking plan, start hiking. Reindeer today, views, gentle hills, bridges over rushing water. The prospect of a restaurant meal at Beverholmen, maybe even ice cream in Alderström. This was starting out to be a good day.
If you look closely, you can see the reindeer in the distance. Our morning hike. Not bad, eh? We've just walked a few kilometers from our beautiful campsite last night. Here we're at Beverholmen's Veldhuis. The rumor is they have really good burgers. If you order in advance, which we didn't, they have other wonderful tasty dishes. And if you want to have a good view with your meal, not the guy without a shirt on, this.
The burger and fries at Beverholmen did not disappoint. Ryan ordered a second meal as he finished his first. When we were about halfway done, the hostess asked us if we wanted a ride into Olofström in their boat. We still thought we needed to make up some time and really enjoyed our ride with Torbjorn into Ammernes. Our first clue that we had made a mistake was when the boat crew started yelling at us from the dock to eat faster because they were ready to go. These guys had two speeds: accelerate and emergency stop. Their racetrack was marked by buoys showing where the boulders were hidden just below the surface of the lake. We missed most by less than a meter. We recovered from our shock and headed towards the ice cream store. That was closed. Big disappointment. The beautiful trail continued for the rest of the day. Ryan had a total of only 18 days to hike the whole trail and needed to hike faster and further than I could. He found us a perfect campsite with a fire ring and a bench overlooking a lake. He disappeared into the future. We made a fire and enjoyed the sunset.
This has been a hard climb this morning. We've had some hard downhills too, but most of them have been uphills. But I turn around to look to see where I came from.
Once the morning's climb was completed, we started a gentle descent towards Yakvik, toward a bed with sheets and blankets, toward a pillow, pizza, ice cream, a shower. We took a 0 day in Yakvik. We didn't need any of the shortcuts we took. I think I needed the rest day, though. It had been an intense week, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, too. Every day was filled with beauty and everything was new. The rest day was good. We had great neighbors here, too, but I'll tell you about them next week.
We've had a long hike today, about 7 kilometers, mostly uphill. The last few downhill. And here's our treat.
My resupply box showed up with some external damage, but everything inside was fine. I mentioned in my previous video about resupplying that the grocery store here in Yakvik will meet all of your needs and desires. The apartment we rented was right on the lake. It's the deepest lake in Sweden, I'm told. It's hard to tell from here. I'm wrapping up this video from an undisclosed location. It was quite an exciting and interesting week. I figured out that 10 miles or 16 kilometers per day is about right. Double that is definitely the wrong distance this early in my hike. In Yakvik, I gave myself a pack shakedown and sent home with Lars at least a kilo of more than a couple pounds of extra gear. I never missed any of it. Next week is my first time alone on Kungsleden as I hike from Yakvik to Kvikkjokk. Being alone had a big psychological effect on me. I really started to doubt myself and my abilities. I came near hypothermia one night after hiking a full day in rain and overflowing trails. If I had had the option, I would have bailed. My only option was to pack up my tent and keep hiking. So that's what I did. I will also meet some great people next week. We finished Kungsleden together. Please leave any questions or comments below. I'm still finishing up the remaining videos so I can include more information or adjust as needed. The last video in this series will be a question and answer video. I'll answer the questions that have come in. There's been lots of them. Thank you so much for those. I'll also share the changes I'm going to make for my next Kungsleden hike. See you next week. Please hike and subscribe. It really helps the channel if you share this video with an adventurous friend or two. Hej då! Howdy hi, I'm John's dad. Welcome back to my video series on planning for and hiking the King's Trail or Kungsleden in northern Sweden. You can find the entire series of videos in this playlist. Last week we hiked from the southern end of Kungsleden in Hemavan, past Viturskalle, Syter, Säve, and Ammernes, down into Jäkvik to stay at the hostel called Kyrkans Fjällgård. You can easily get to Jäkvik year-round to do out-and-back hikes on local trails. It's a skiing mecca in the winter, too. There's a pizza restaurant that's open only during skiing season. We took a zero in Jäkvik. Lars headed home first by bus and then by train to Gothenburg. In this video, I continue solo from Jäkvik north to Kvikkjokk. On a very personal level, this was the most significant and meaningful section of Kungsleden for me. I was alone in the mountains in bad weather. I thought I was in so far over my head that if I survived, that I would need to quit. My fully loaded backpack was too heavy for me to have any fun, so I gave myself a really strict pack shakedown in Jäkvik. I sent home more than 1 kilo of gear with Lars. The most egregious was my battery power. I brought twice as much battery power as I needed. After a week, I had used only half of one of the batteries. I was glad to send it home. I woke early and took yet another shower. I ate breakfast quietly and took the trash and recycle out to the garbage shed. It was raining lightly. In fact, this was the lightest it would rain all day. I loaded everything up and woke Lars to let him know I was leaving. His bus was scheduled for 4 hours later. He got to sleep in. Kungsleden followed the edge of the water with lots of turns and ups and downs not apparent from the map. When I reached the first water crossing, there were some German hikers just waking up. They had spent the night in a shelter out of the rain. They helped me get into a rowboat and pushed me off. They watched me for a while to see if I would struggle like the couple from Stockholm who tried to share the rowing duties. Check out my video on Kungsleden water crossings for more details. I made it to the other side without incident. I did not even get my boots wet. After tying up the rowboat, I continued north on a level trail past lots of water features. During my hike today in the rain, I decided that if the weather is good, then I should be hiking. We had beautiful weather on our 0 day in Jäkvik, but I could have been putting large sections of Kungsleden behind me in really nice weather. The Swedish couple's husband's mother was part of the Swedish Foreign Department. He had lived in Washington, D.C. His English was honestly as good as mine. We spoke some Swedish, but it was obviously easier when we both spoke English. I didn't take many pictures because my backpack was sitting by the shore under the roof of a boathouse, and we were waiting on the covered porch of one of the many private cottages uphill. There were people hiding out at the other cottages too. I would meet many of them over the next few days. When the motorboat finally came, we all moved to the water's edge and climbed aboard. It was nice to sit in the warm and dry cabin. I sat next to a clearly exhausted German woman. We paid the fee after disembarking on the north side of the water. We set up our tents in the free area near the water. I started meeting some of the people that I would be crossing paths with over the next couple weeks. Uni and I joined Thomas, Pontus, Annelies, and a couple of her friends from Belgium for dinner. Uni was really hungry and scarfed down most of my moose burger and fries. We went to sleep in the rain.
It rained almost all day yesterday. Slight drizzle, sometimes a little heavier. I got to the boat crossing and I was wet from rain, sweat. Waited for a couple hours for the boat, got to sit inside the heated cabin. Slept in my wet tent, wasn't too bad though. And I had dinner, a moose burger, french fries. Rained all night but stopped about 5. My pack went away wet, but I'm dry and happy. Beautiful views.
I got up shortly after the rain stopped. It would surprise me if anyone heard me leave. It takes a lot longer to pack up silently compared to throwing everything into your backpack. I was really quiet. I walked along with about 5 fishermen who were headed to this wonderful lake that they just had to tell me about over and over again. One of their friends wanted to poop, and they ended up in an argument. He wanted them to continue walking to the lake so that he could poop without the pressure of people standing there waiting for him. They wanted to wait. Finally, I said to one of them, "Show me this lake of yours," and we left the poor guy in peace. The Swedish couple from Stockholm that were in the apartment next to our apartment in Järvik passed me at this bridge. That was the last I would see of them as I ran north. They seemed like they were having fun. The Arctic Circle passes just north of Ronatviken. I started watching for the sign nailed to a tree. The exhausted German woman from the motorboat was waiting for me just south of the sign so that she could cross it with Uni and me. We took the appropriate pictures. She can hike twice as fast as I can, so when she disappeared up the trail, my assumption was that I would never see her again. It wasn't long before I spotted Caroline, that's her name, talking with a family about halfway up a talus-covered hill. The wife is a train engineer in Switzerland, and the husband is some kind of consultant. They have found that living on long-distance trails half of the year while they rent out their home is best for them economically. Their 3-year-old son is still in diapers and sometimes insists on walking and sometimes insists on being carried. They can never plan their hiking days. The husband thinks it's working out great for the family, and the wife was noticeably silent on the topic. What do you think? Caroline and I hiked together for a while, but her abilities far outlasted mine. I started slowing significantly. The steep downhill you can see on the map transitioned into an undulating surface where the trail goes down sharply a meter and then goes immediately back up. On the map and from a distance, it looks like a flat trail. Pontus caught up to me while I was taking a break at what I now realized was the perfect campsite. We talked about how exhausted I felt, and he pointed to the flat and dry ground at my feet. I rejected the suggestion because I wanted to keep up with the new friends I had made at Ronatviken. I finished my beef jerky snack and kept hiking. The next dry spot, big enough for a tent, was 5 miles further up this difficult trail. It was raining hard, the wind was blowing, the trail was full of water, my boots were full of water. I made a mistake with potentially disastrous consequences. What I didn't consider was that there were nice people hiking behind me too. I could have slowed down to be safer and still hiked with friends. I set up my tent here because I could not physically go over the 2 bridges spanning the rapids.
This is where I decided to camp last night. It was raining pretty hard. I didn't feel like crossing 2 bridges in the rain, slippery rocks. And this was the closest flat space. And it wasn't exactly flat either.
I lay awake in my tent until after 11 a.m. I was exhausted. I didn't know if I should or even could continue. People hiking had to detour around my tent because it was partially blocking the trail. I ate 2 meals and lots of snacks in my sleeping bag. Finally, I had to face reality and start another day. Demoralized, disappointed, depressed. Lots of other negative thoughts and emotions. 2 days on Kungsleden and I had failed. I received an encouraging message on my Garmin from my friend Bill. It was a quote from Sir Edmund Hillary. "It is not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves." My situation was all of my own making. I pushed myself beyond my limits. I'm always learning, and these past 24 hours ranked pretty high on the learning scale. As difficult as it was, I packed up like usual and crossed the bridges to the north. This was not an easy hiking day. Uni checked out the mountain whose side we were about to climb. Much of it was steeper than 45 degrees. Each step up was difficult, but I had no choice but to keep going. I took a rest at the top of the climb and turned around to see where I had been. The wind blew strong like always. My confidence was coming back. I was still kicking myself, and I still do a good amount of kicking even today. I was back, though. Gone were the thoughts of quitting. For the most part, I had learned my lesson and learned it well. I was shaken by the ordeal, but I had survived. For now. I met an Australian hiking south about halfway through the day. We chatted for a long time. People asked me over the next couple days if I had met the friendly Australian. I hope people ask the same about me, the friendly American hiking northbound. I won't even try to pronounce the name of the cabin that came into view at least an hour before I came to it. The cabin was on the south side of the river and the camp area was on the north. I set up my tent and crossed back over the bridge to make dinner. Another YouTuber named Ted Weirham came while I was eating the second of my dinners. I linked to his channels in the notes. I had hiked so much more every day than expected that I had too much food. My confidence is returning.
Crossing some mountains and tree area to get to a boat crossing so I can get to Kvikjok. Both times are 10:30 and 5:30. I'm not going to make the 10:30. I'll miss it by a half hour. That's okay. This has been a great trail. About probably 3.5 mile an hour trail. A lot of it goes down to about a 1 mile an hour trail too. this was an adventure this morning. I'm going to make it for a 12:30 boat. It isn't here yet. I've got a few minutes. Beautiful path. Was able to do 4 kilometers an hour. Easy. It was great. Met an Irish guy, Slovakia guy, a couple of both. I think I met a Swede too, but everybody has learned to say hey hey, and so you don't know where they're really from.
Elena dropped us off at the boat dock. She collected our money and directed us up the hill to the mountain station. Ted and I walked up there and hung out for a while together. Then he had to continue on, and I got to stay there for a couple days. You'll never guess who I ran into. Next week, we're going to Salterlukta. Last week ended with a fairly easy and fast hike to the boat dock just south of Kvikjok. We arrived here a full 2 days earlier than planned. Our almost marathon distance hiking days had some benefits, but they were beating me up pretty well too. Our reservation inside the mountain station with a bed and a shower was for the 3rd night at Kvikjok. It could only be changed if there was an opening. They were booked full due to COVID restrictions. Uni and I set up our tent at the edge of a small prairie just south of the mountain station. There's already an old German woman camped here on her way south to Hemavan. She's about my age, and we talked for a long time. She reminded me a lot of the very experienced German hiker we met on our way to the boat ride into Ammernes with Torbjörn. Uni and I relaxed. We ate ice cream. We ate marabou chocolate. We healed our injuries. After we had rested for a while, Uni was eager to get out and keep walking. Somehow, constantly walking has become part of our lives. We just can't sit still. I put together a small bag of 10 essentials and we headed out to explore Kvikjok. We had lunch sitting outside this quaint church. I wanted to go inside, but the gate was closed, so I didn't feel comfortable going in. Don't believe what I said at the end of this video. I'm already planning my next Kungsleden hike.
This is Kvikjok. They have a fail station or a mountain hostel here. And I got here Thursday, today's Saturday. So I camped 2 nights. Tonight I have a night actually in the hostel. Met a lot of nice people. Some people from Holland. Girls from Belgium were here again. 2 of them left and there's 1 now continuing north. A lot of people from Germany, a couple Swedes. It's been quite an awesome experience. These 2 days have offset the this day of horror I had hiking 30 kilometers in the rain, setting my tent up in the rain, being miserable, totally wet. This is worth it. I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to live on the memories.
Here's the campsite I stayed at. I was putting together piles of wood I found from the surrounding forest so I could have a fire tonight, and some people showed up and set up their tents right next to it. We didn't have a fire. Is anyone concerned that a bunch of drunk Italians are building a fire next to some tents?
It's just 200, 400 meters next report.
Uni and I met many wonderful people in the days we spent recovering at Kvikjok. Uni shared some mackerel with Guna from Latvia. She and her husband have now had a beautiful baby. We spent time with two Dutchmen. One had to leave Kungsleden due to injury. We discussed the environment with the other. He said he could never fly again because he had used up all of his points. We all thought he meant frequent flyer points, but he eventually got us to understand that he means carbon pollution points. Of course, we'll always remember our favorite Belgian, Annelies. We finished Kungsleden with her at the buffet breakfast in Abisko. For our last night at Kvikjok, Uni and I checked into our room and picked up our resupply box. It was undamaged and everything inside looked good, but I was getting tired of it. We got our laundry done and then had a fancy meal, which I believe was cooked by a chef, a true chef. It was delicious.
So far this morning I've covered a whole kilometer. Portestugan is only 16 kilometers away. That's 10 miles. And I get to walk in the woods. There are some rocks, but usually they're smaller than this. I left Kvikjok this morning a little after 8. Had a great breakfast. I'm feeling really strong today. Some bread with some ham and cheese and some brie, which is a cheese I know, but it's a different kind of cheese. And had field milk with muesli and some hazelnuts in it. It was yummy. Met a lot of people on this section, more today so far in 2 hours than I've met hiking the last couple days. This is a more popular section. The section I just left has no cabins, so people have to use tents, and it's not as popular. People like using the cabins. One of the bits of information or advice I've been given several times is stop every once in a while, turn around, and look back. I'm always rewarded.
Today was easy hiking with awesome views. We crossed through more reindeer gates than on any other section. We're at a lower elevation, so the views are limited by trees and lakes. Still beautiful. I met a German man named Cornelius, or Corny for short, just as I was about to make a mistake of taking the winter Kungsleden. He set me straight. I met him again up the trail when he was taking a break with Caroline, of all people. I thought she was days ahead of me by now. She had gotten sick and taken a couple days off the trail to recover. As we hiked north, we met up with Bao from Vietnam. I met him in the lobby at the Kvikjok mountain station when I picked up my resupply box. I was so sick of the food I sent myself that I gladly gave it all to him. It saved him on resupply costs, and I didn't have to carry food I was starting to detest. I never asked, but I think Caroline and Bao had met when they camped together in Yakvik. You've now been introduced to my whole tramley. I don't have any pictures of Corny or Bao yet in the hike. You'll see them shortly. I was still a little shaken from my early ordeal. I took a bed at the Porta cabin along with Corny. Caroline and Bao continued uphill. We catch up to them tomorrow.
The climb out of Portestugan this morning has been good. A lot of rocks. I did fall one time. Slippery rocks. It's going up, and this is the steep part. This will be the steepest up today.
We made 3 Danish friends at Porte. We communicated with a weird combination of Danish, Swedish, and English. We would leapfrog them for a few days until they left the trail. This morning, Kungsleden took us just on the edge of Sarek National Park. Sarek is a distinct high mountain area with steep, glacier-covered mountain massives and high plains. It is a prime destination for those who desire a true backcountry experience. Caroline and Bao had found a great tent site about an hour north of Porte. Their tents were pitched on each side of the Kungsleden. They were just beginning to stir when I passed by. Later, Corny stopped to have morning coffee with them. They all passed me a couple hours later.
Good idea always to turn around and look backward, see where you've been. I've been following that string of lakes all day. Heading down this way for this afternoon, talked to several people. They've been rowing the boat across the lake. Not an option for me.
Our big goal for today is to reach the base of Skarfa Mountain. We will climb it tomorrow. It is arguably the most beautiful view in all of Sweden. Years ago, I had heard about Kungsleden, but I didn't start dreaming of a through hike until I saw pictures from Skarfa. That cemented the idea for me. Skarfa is why I'm here. Uni sat and stared at Skarfa without moving the whole time we waited for the motorboat. The rest of my family chose to use the rowboat. The climb north from the water crossing past Oxit is very steep. Bao found us a fantastic campsite with a view down over the water and up to Skarfa. It was Uni's turn to blow up the air mattress. Honestly, it takes her so long that I'm thinking maybe I should just do it myself.
So I got up early this morning and headed up towards Skarfa. Wanted to stop here and share the view with you. Isn't it beautiful? And there is Skarfa. Quite often it's hard to tell where the trail is. It's a lot of up, very little mud, and that's a nice thing, at least for this part of the trail. And if I'm reading the map right, I get to climb this next.
Don't be fooled by the single line on the map running from Kungsleden west towards the peak of Skarfa. There are countless different paths you can take. Each is marked with the same red blazes. Pick your own best route and head for the top. My plan had been to leave my heavy pack just before the last steep climb to the top. Given all the different trails leading to the top, I was not sure I would ever find it again. I carried it all the way up. My family was able to pitch one of their tents and store all their gear inside for the climb. They caught up to me just a few hundred yards from the summit. After less than an hour, we headed down. We had a boat to catch. Planning the hike, I saw that there could be a shortcut from Scarefit to the boat dock that would eliminate several thousand feet of elevation change and would reduce the hiking distance by several kilometers too. Without knowing if the terrain would be passable, I kept it as just an option. The shortcut worked. We made our boat in time.
This is the view that I could not see this morning on the way to Scarefit. On the way home, it's all clear.
Supplied and made dinner at the Citoyata cabin, climbed a steep hill, and hiked about halfway to Saltalukta before deciding to stop. I brought out my picture folder for today to make this video, I found absolutely no pictures from the actual hike. No hills, no clouds, no water, no reindeer, nothing. It's not surprising. It was a short day. I was in Salterlukta before noon. It was also pouring down rain. The wind was strong, straight out of the north. I hiked with my hood up and tied tightly. My head was down, watching my feet splash in every puddle. I didn't worry about running into southbounders because I knew they could hike with their heads up and would see me coming. I saw several pairs of boots standing just to the side of the trail as I marched north to Salterlukta. We took a 00 in Salterlukta. A single 0 or even a Nero would have been better. We met lots of people though. I enjoyed getting to have real discussions with real people in Swedish. The food in the restaurant was great too. We played board games. Uni enjoyed learning how to play chess. I taught other hikers how to play checkers. We relaxed by the fireplace. We made new friends. I sure hope you're enjoying watching these videos as much as I'm enjoying making them. It's been a real trip down memory lane for me. I'm remembering the rain, the wind, sometimes the cold, the views. I'm also remembering the people I got to meet and hike with. Backpackers are good people everywhere. Next week, we'll be finishing up the hike by connecting Salterlukta to Abisko. The first 30 miles of the hike are on a bus. We'll go over Jakja Pass, the highest point on Kungsleden. The last video in this series will be a Q&A video. People are making comments and asking questions with each video. I'm getting back to everyone individually, and I'll use this final video to cover the questions of general interest. I'll be doing things differently next time I hike Kungsleden. You may be surprised to hear some of the changes I'm making. Please remember to hike and subscribe, hit the little bell, share the video with an adventurous friend or two. They'll thank you, and it really helps the channel. See you later, bye. Today started with a buffet breakfast in the matsal. Good cheese, good bread, field milk and granola. We bought our boat ticket for the ride north over Suarvajara to the bus that would take us to Vakaravara. The Kungsleden hikers that are purists walk this section of road. Our bus passed some of them at 70 kilometers an hour. I'm not so pure. The bus stopped for about an hour at the halfway point for a driver change and fika. Uni was enjoying some ice cream named after her when our bus driver walked into the combined restaurant and gift shop with the other driver. And as they passed us, he said to him in Swedish, "They couldn't be that dumb, could they?" They found the missing passengers on the other bus. After a careful head count, we headed north. Suddenly, the bus pulled to the side of the road and opened its doors. We got off at Vakodavara cabin, which was just meters from the road. Without planning it, we realized that we had all taken some bread, butter, cheese, and pålägg, which is sandwich meat, from Saltalukta's breakfast buffet to eat for lunch. I'm not recommending it, it's not the right thing to do, but it is what we did. Lunch with this beautiful view, followed by a steep climb and heavy winds and light rain. My backpack was heavy with a fresh resupply. I caught up with my family at the motorboat crossing for Tushayara. Bao made me a sandwich using a tortilla and some of the bacon cheese in a tube that I showed you in an earlier video. After the motorboat ride, we resupplied and made dinner at a picnic table near the cabin. At the top of a steep climb, Bao again found us some nice tent spots looking back over the valley.
So you walk around, or walk along, while following the blazes. You can come up over a little ridge. It's not too bad.
Today was a 20-mile day, more than 30 kilometers. The big realization for me was that it was a long day, but nowhere near as tough as our first full day when we hiked basically the same distance all the way to Tarnafjordsstugana. Was I in better shape? Maybe the terrain is easier on the northern end of Kungsleden? If you've hiked it already, what do you think? If not, when you do hike it, pay attention to the differences and leave a comment below. If someone is going to hike just part of Kungsleden, which part would you recommend? It was a great hike up to Kaitumjara. The reindeer made a point of saying hi to Uni. Kaitumjara has the best outhouse. I met both the outgoing and the incoming cabin hosts. They offered me soft, but I had to decline because my mug was buried deep in my pack. Check out my Q&A video coming out at the end of this series for changes I'm going to make for next time. One thing for sure is that I'm going to stay here. The views are breathtaking. The outhouse alone makes it worth a long visit. I headed north towards Singi after a short break with Bao and Caroline. What can I say about Singi? I had seen several places that Singi is a great place to just hike past. It's a nice enough cabin. The views are spectacular like everywhere else along Kungsleden. You might decide to head east to Nikkaluokta or to climb Kebnekaise. Watch all the trails in this area very carefully though. There are lots of them and they all have red blazes. They don't all go where you would like them to go. Compared to Singi, Selke is the place to be. A store, chocolate and other snacks, pop, food, a picnic table out of the wind. We met a young German man while we were eating here. He was maybe still in his teens. He was near tears. His sister had just gone home as planned, and now he had to hike alone. He said he was lonely over and over again, but I think he was really scared. We encouraged him the best we could. Caroline was able to talk with him in German, which seemed to comfort him a lot. Bao's superpower seems to be finding excellent camping spots. After dinner, we hiked north, where he found the perfect spot again. After I settled into my sleeping bag, I heard noises right outside my tent. I knew it wasn't a bear, but until I unzipped the rainfly, I didn't know that a herd of reindeer stopped by to say goodnight to Uni and me. It was cold last night. A little frost on the tent never hurt anyone. Being so far north, the sun stays low near the horizon, giving long shadows until late in the morning. We're going to go up and over at Chakja Pass today. It's the highest point on Kungsleden.
This is the direction I'm hiking today, but as always, remember, turn around and look behind you. That's where I came from, beyond the bend, a few hours ago. And here's where I'm going again.
The views down the valley leading to Chakcha Pass are memorable. Very memorable. Here are Bao and Caroline. We're on our way to the top. We stopped for dinner in the emergency shelter on Chakcha Pass. Some people we had met before stopped too. Everyone emptied their packs of extra food, especially snacks and chocolate. We helped each other eat all this extra weight. We're only 2 days from Abisko now, so everyone knows that extra food is just extra weight. With all the people and all the stoves, the emergency hut warmed up very nicely. It had become our routine to have dinner and then walk for an hour or so before stopping for the night. Today was no exception. We passed Chakcha, which was too far off the trail to be interesting to us. We found a nice little prairie to set up in. It was windy, but we were almost home. Today was definitely the day of the reindeer. I'll give you some extended views so you can get a sense of how they interact with each other. Sorry about the zoomed in images being a little fuzzy. They wouldn't come to me when I called them. When my Q&A video comes out at the end of this series, I'll let you know my plans for next time. I really need to get better image quality. Alajawa Stugana came into view many miles before we were close to it. It made the hike seem like it took much longer than it really did. The windows facing south over the bridge give a view that rivals Kaitumyara. Uni and I took time to fika and to look over the hiking plan for today. We started a little south of Alajawa, and we were hoping to make it past Abiskojaure all the way to Nisonyok. We followed Kungsleden up the west side of Alajawa. The helicopter landed just long enough to triage a patient and to load them up. I hope it was a wilderness delivery rather than the pickup of an injured hiker. I stopped to talk with a class of Danish students who were on their first backpacking trip. I remember looking that tired just a couple weeks ago. The weather changed very gradually during the day, from overcast to light sprinkles to a solid rain. I was very thankful for my rain pants today. Kungsleden got very narrow on the side of a hill leading up to our campsite. We fell asleep listening to the water rush under the bridge that we would cross first thing in the morning. This may not have been the most beautiful campsite Bao had found us, but it was absolutely the best available in the area. For the first time, I did not leave camp first today. Caroline was getting out of her tent just as I was finishing up my packing. She filled my water bladder for me at the bridge so we could get hiking sooner. We made a quick stop at Alajawa Stugana for a snack and continued north along the east side of Alajawa. It was a hiking day. We kept moving, and the weather was great. Bao caught up to me, and we finished the hike to Nisanyok, where we set up camp for the night. We made a quick run without our packs into Abisko and back again. When I returned to camp, some women from Latvia were making dinner with real food in a heavy frying pan. They were car camping their way to Norway. They were making some kind of a stir fry and invited me to eat their leftovers. Unfortunately, I had to eat straight from the cooking pan because they had filled my mug with wine. Several people joined us that evening, including Bao and Caroline. We spent the evening talking around an old wooden pallet that simulated a fire ring. This was a fantastic way to spend our last night on Kungsleden. was finally able to check out my bruise from 2 weeks ago when we got to our hostel. I can't imagine how big it was when I first got it. We did a lot of damage to the breakfast buffet at the Abisko mountain station with the friends we had met over the last few weeks. Uni embarrassed me with all the food she ate. She can't stop talking about our next adventure together. As I wrap up the Kungsleden trip reports with pictures to remind you of the beautiful views, I want to let you know that a Q&A video is also in the works. It'll be the final video in this series and should come out a couple weeks after this one. Be sure to leave any questions or comments below so I can include them. I will also be sharing the changes I'll be making next time. You may be surprised at some. I hope you've been enjoying this video series, and even if you haven't, please be sure to share this video with those adventurous friends of yours. See you later, bye.
Du gamla, du fria, du fjällhöga nord, du tysta, du glädjerika sköna. Jag hälsar dig värnaste land upp på jord, din sol, din himmel, dina ängder gröna. Din sol, din himmel, dina ängder gröna. Du trånar på minnen från fornstora dagar, då ärat ditt namn flög över jorden. Jag vet att du är och du blir vad du var. Ja, jag vill leva, jag vill dö i Norden. Ja, jag vill leva, jag vill dö i Norden. Jag vet att du är och du blir vad du var. Ja, jag vill leva, jag vill dö i Norden. Ja, jag vill leva, jag vill dö i Norden.
Howdy hi. Welcome back. I'm John's dad, and you're watching the Next Time video in the series on planning for and hiking the King's Trail in northern Sweden. I refer to it as Kungsleden, which in Swedish means the King's Trail. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? This was an awesome experience. I hope after watching the video series, you now have a spark in your soul to take on Kungsleden. As I promised earlier, this video describes what I'm going to do the same and what I'm going to do differently next time. Next time is tentatively scheduled for next summer. For easier trip-to-trip comparison, I'm hoping to have my first full day on Kungsleden be August 1st again. That means I'll arrive in Hemavan on the last day of July, which is exactly 5 years to the day from my knee replacement surgery. The final video in the series will come out next week. It'll be a Q&A video. I've received lots of good questions and comments from you. I appreciate that. It lets me know I'm making a difference, and that's my ultimate goal. First, I'm going to talk about the things that I will do basically the same way. Of course, everything gets tweaked, but these are the strategies that will remain fundamentally unchanged. First, I'm going to remain a member of the Swedish Tourist Association, STF, Svenska Turistföreningen, and I recommend you do the same. They do great things for the nature and the wildlife in northern Sweden and all over Sweden actually. The membership cost is justified with only a couple nights in one of the mountain stations or in mountain cabins. In the Q&A video, I'll show you how to use the FTF website to take advantage of some of their benefits. My fundamental travel and hiking plans will remain the same. All my airline reservations will be made in advance because that's the most fiscally responsible thing to do. Last minute airfare tickets can get so expensive. My hiking plan will again include just over 3 weeks for the hike itself, with a lot of buffer at the end to be a generic tourist and to visit some of the wonderful Swedish people I've met over the decades. I may even take a side trip into Norway and Denmark too. Don't tell my Swedish friends, but there are actually some very nice Norwegians and Danes. If you want to see beautiful mountains, don't skip Norway. It worked out well last time to wait to make post-hike travel and tourist plans until I approached Abisko. Waiting made it so there was no pressure on me to make a schedule and possibly risk injury. I'll do that again for sure. I will hike northbound or Nobo again. I originally decided to hike Nobo so that I could hang a solar panel off the back of my backpack. I eventually decided to take a bigger battery pack and not deal with a solar panel in a climate expected to see rain on about half of the days and cloudy skies on most of the rest. Another advantage of hiking northbound is that the sun will tend to be at your sides or behind you, shining its light on the views in front of you. The little hiking I did towards the south confirmed that for me. With the sun low in the horizon and right in my eyes, I tended to look down at the trail and rarely up at the views. Here in the States, I have AT&T as my cell phone service provider. As you know, a lot of Kungsleden, most of Kungsleden, is far from any mobile cell service. They do have a thing they call an international passport option. When you use it, it costs $10 for each day. If you're not using it, it doesn't cost anything. When I had cell service in Sweden, it was great. It was nice and strong. My phone sometimes even worked high up in the remote mountains. I checked my phone bill when I got home and saw that my call home after visiting Skarefjell actually connected to a cell phone tower in Norway. That call was perfect. There was nothing wrong with it. No complaints. You may have a different experience though. I'm not going to change my fundamental layering plan for my clothes. A base layer, insulating layers, an outer layer or a shell. It was regularly very windy, so I wore my raincoat or my shell all the time. Some of the individual garments will change. One of them I wore out and I threw it away. But the strategy is going to stay fundamentally the same. Rain pants are now required as part of my outer layer or shell. I talk about that in my earlier videos and in depth in my book. I need rain pants and so do you. Unless something really surprises me, I'm going to use my Big Agnes Copper Spur High Volume Ultralight 2 tent again. It worked out really well. I'm going to bring the extra stakes needed for the extra outrigger strings in case it's really windy at night. Now it was windy during the daytime a lot, but at night when the sun went down, the wind calmed. It still freaks me out, but people sleep with their food in their tent when hiking Kungsleden. No protection for the animals is needed. The animals haven't associated people with the food yet. So I picked up a lighter and stronger Dyneema food bag, but basically I'll be sleeping with my food the same way. I will spray my gear and clothes with permethrin again. Insects rarely bothered me, but I saw others being attacked feverishly every day. What I did worked. I will also carry a small bottle of either DEET or picaridin. I didn't use it last time, but I think the vicious reputation of the Swedish mosquitoes warrants a little packing for my fears. Next, I'm going to cover some things I'm going to do differently. Nothing is really major necessarily, but each one is an improvement, and I'm going to focus on weight reduction, an extreme focus on weight reduction. Given that Kungsleden hike is an extremely remote and potentially hostile environment, and that is much longer than a typical weekend or week-long trip, I took extras. Extra clothes, extra tent pole repair splints, extra tent stakes, extra water bags, extra bandages. I should have figured out how to take less. And that's the plan for next time. I'm going to focus on leaving more things at home and taking things that weigh less. My backpack weight has to come down. Battery power was the most offensive of my overpacking. You pack your fears, and boy did I pack them when it came to batteries. I had more than twice the battery power I needed. After my Kungsleden hike, I upgraded from the RAV Power and Anchor 26,800 milliamp battery packs, each weighing more than a pound, to the lighter Nicor 20 and 10,000 milliamp battery packs. While 30 milliamps is still more than what I need, the combination of the two smaller batteries weighs 22 ounces or 600 grams less than just one of the other batteries. Carrying two smaller capacity battery banks also gives me a backup battery in case one of them fails or gets lost. I met a woman in Kvikjok whose battery pack took an unauthorized swim at a water crossing. She was begging for electrons from anyone who could spare them. Luckily, I had lots to spare. When I was backpacking in Alaska last summer, I dropped my battery bank. I broke one of the charging connectors. Luckily, the other one still worked. If I had broken both of them, I would have had a real problem. Having the two smaller battery banks will give me some backup, and it weighs a little bit more than it should maybe, but I need the protection. Yeah, at least that's my fear. I'm going to stick with my Garmin InReach Explorer Plus GPS. It's worked reliably in various situations. It was especially good above the tree line on Kungsleden. If something happens to it though, I will upgrade to a GPS unit that's lighter. I originally selected the Garmin InReach Explorer Plus because it had twice the battery capacity of the Garmin InReach Mini, even though it also came at twice the weight. This is another time of me packing my electrical fears. I know now from experience that I would be glad to lose half the battery capacity and gain 1/2 the weight in savings. The GPS is not a significant drain on my battery banks. My Olympus camera weighs in about at 1/2 pound. It takes good pictures, but it's almost 10 years old. Camera technology, especially cameras in phones, have come a long way. I'm going to leave the old reliable camera at home and will use my phone for all videos and photos. I picked up an external memory stick that will plug into my phone so I can offload pictures and videos if I fill it up. The headlamp is staying home. It never gets so dark that you need a headlamp. If you do need some extra light, the flashlight or even the glow from your phone is enough. If you'll be hiking late in August and into the fall, you'll need to carry a headlamp for the short period of the night that actually does get dark. Earlier in the summer, it never gets so dark that a headlamp would even help. I've ordered a 950 downfill Enlighten equipment quilt, rated for 10 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 10 degrees Celsius. Even though I was very happy with how my REI Magma 15 degree down mummy bag performed last time, this change will save me 1/2 pound. It's no accident that my new quilt is blue and yellow. I have a new air mattress. My old Thermarest air mattress I used on Kungsleden earned its keep over more than a decade of backpacking. I used it for hundreds of nights. You should not infer anything negative about my decision to swap it out. I was very happy with it. Sometimes things just wear out after lots of use. On this year's hike on the Appalachian Trail, I noticed that some of the baffle seams were starting to release. I just happened to see it visually. It never affected my sleeping, but I have had air mattresses pop entire baffle tubes. It makes it uncomfortable, if not impossible, to get a good night's sleep. My intention was to buy an identical air mattress as a replacement. Instead, I upgraded to a Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite NXT, which will save me more than 100 grams. Hey, it counts. I haven't used it yet, but I have every expectation that I'll be just as happy with this one as I was with its predecessor. I'm not bringing the damn chair. I used it 3 times on all of Kungsleden. 3 times. It weighs way more than a pound at 800 grams. I can sit on the ground for that much. The 5 paper maps I carried weighed more than half a pound, about 250 grams. This is a lot. I will always carry paper maps and a compass, but I'll rely mostly on the Gaia GPS app on my phone again. For paper backup, my plan is to use a Kungsleden Atlas that weighs only half of the paper maps. Being smaller, the Atlas will not have all the same detail, but I don't think that's going to affect my hike. I won't bring any sunscreen next time. The sun is actually out and shining brightly on less than a quarter of the days, and the temperature never gets so warm that you want to hike for extended periods with exposed skin. I hiked with long pants, my hat, my shell, and often my Gore-Tex mittens every day. As I said, I'm going to bring my tent and basically the same camping gear, but I plan to visit and stay in STF cabins more often. This is primarily to meet other people and interact with them. I especially want to spend one night in Hemavan. We got off the bus, grabbed some food, headed north to Abisko. I think Hemavan will be an interesting place to check out, and maybe I'll meet some fellow hikers too. Backpackers are interesting people. Kungsleden is often very far down on the list of trails that people want to hike. The people you'll meet have hiked tons of trails around the world, and they've got lots of experiences they want to share. My expectation was that Kungsleden would have informal campsites where strangers would naturally gather around a fire ring at the end of a hiking day. With Allemansrätten and unlimited camping options, people stopped wherever they wanted. We never saw anyone else camping. They were definitely there. We saw them during the day hiking, but we camped so far away that we weren't even aware of each other. Along with everyone else camping at the non-existent campsites, I had assumed incorrectly we would have long evenings sitting around on my 1-pound chair and my 1-pound camp shoes. This didn't happen either. We hiked after dinner until it was time to set up the tent and go to sleep. I haven't decided if I'm going to leave the camp shoes at home or not. The shoes I took were not appropriate. They started to stink pretty badly from being wet and from being on my feet. I picked up some Crocs, which still weigh the same, about a pound, but they don't pick up that repulsive vomit-inducing odor. If the water crossings had been just a little deeper, I could see myself switching into the Crocs to keep my hiking boots drier. What are your plans on using for water or camp shoes, if at all? In case you're wondering, people just wear their socks inside the mountain cabins and mountain stations. There's no need to bring inside shoes. Just bring your socks. Hike your own hike. I'm going to hike at a slower pace, and in general, I'm going to be hiking shorter days. I need to stay within my comfort and my safety zone. I hiked faster and further than I really should have to keep up with the younger hikers in my tramway. I will need to keep reminding myself that there are nice people coming up from behind me too. I fell 5 times, and each time was a direct result of trying to go too fast. I was lucky a minor cut and a huge bruise were my worst injuries. As you probably know, last time I prepared and sent myself 4 resupply boxes. I'll stick the link up here. They went to Amranes, Järvik, Kvikkjokk, and Sottolukta. You know, they worked out okay, I guess. I never ran out of food or any other supply. My video on how to resupply along the trail details how I'll plan to do it next time. Basically, I will carry the food I need plus 1 day of emergency food. Every time I pass an STF or a village store, I'll buy what I need to get to the next STF or village store. It's 1 or 2 days. There's one stretch where it's 4 days. This may reduce my pack weight by 6 pounds on many days. That's a real weight savings. When I picked up my resupply boxes, I had to carry all the food I had left over from the previous box, plus another 4 or 5 days of food that came in the new box. My backpack was always too heavy. This decision might increase my total trip cost, but I'm thinking it may actually cost me less after you factor in the shipping costs and all the time spent preparing and actually sending the resupply boxes. I upgraded my stove to one that brings water to a boil a lot faster. I like my old stove. It's reliable, it lights on the first try, it has a very dependable and solid low heat setting. I still take it on some trips. My new MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe brings water to a boil really fast, and that's a true measure of success on Kungsleden. This difference became really obvious at Sittujaure, when my water hadn't started boiling yet and other people were already eating. People drink the water straight from the streams, lakes, and rivers along Kungsleden, but not me. I had to insist on treating every liter I drank. This took a lot of extra time. Other people would dip their bottles into the cold and clear water and keep going. I had to pull out my water bladder, collect water in a bottle, pour the water into the bladder, add my tablets, and then put everything back in my backpack. The other hikers eventually stopped waiting for me. I may stop using the water bladder too. I really like it though. Using it added a lot of overhead. If I could just dip my water bottle, stick it in the pocket, and go, I could probably save 15 minutes or more every day. I wouldn't be at all surprised, maybe even more. I was offered lingonberry saft, or fruit juice, at all the mountain cabins I passed. I had to decline because my titanium mug was buried deep inside my pack with the rest of my kitchen gear. It needs to be packed on the outside or an outside pocket with an easy reach so I can accept a big drink of the refreshing liquid. My unicorn Uni will definitely be coming along next time. She eats hardly nothing. I'll do a better job of taking pictures of her doing different things so I can share stories with my grandchildren. I'll also use her as a prop for people to hold when I take their pictures. I met so many people but never got their pictures. My memory of them is fading. Taking a picture with Uni might be kind of fun for them, and it'll be good for my memory too. You know, I could actually just record a video of the people with Uni, not just take a picture. That would catch them smiling and talking and laughing, and that's probably going to be a lot better content for the channel too. I hope this video series has helped you figure out your hiking plans and your gear requirements for Kungsleden. Let me know what you think and how it works out for you. The video coming out next will be the final Q&A video. Please leave any questions or comments below so I can include them. I'll leave you now with Rebecca Gustafsson singing the Swedish national anthem, Du gamla, du fria. It talks a lot about the beautiful nature you'll experience on your Kungsleden hike. See you later, bye.
Du
Howdy hi, I'm John's dad. Welcome back. You're watching the final video in my series on planning for and hiking the King's Trail, or Kungsleden, in northern Sweden. This was such an awesome experience. I hope after watching these videos that you have started your planning. The next hiking season starts in just under a year. Perfect timing. This is a trip you will never forget. You'll tell your grandchildren about it. They will tell their grandchildren about it. You will become a family legend talked about for generations. In fact, I suspect my family talks quite a bit about me already. As I promised, this final video in the series will be a Q&A video to answer some of the questions people have sent to me. It'll be my last Kungsleden video for now. If you see me on the trail next summer, please don't be shy. I'm sure Uni would like to get a picture with you. Several people noticed that the music played in the background is not the typical music clips provided by video editing software. Indeed, it's not. Instead, I selected Sweden's national anthem called Du gamla, du fria, which means you old, you free. I found a version recorded by the artist Rebecca Gustafsson. Only the karaoke version was used up until the last videos. The Swedish national anthem talks about the beautiful mountains in the north, loveliest green landscapes on earth, memories embedded in the land. It talks about wanting to live and die in Sweden. It provides the perfect foundation for the story of Kungsleden that I'm sharing. What is the tread or the actual trail surface like? Here are some pictures of what you should expect the trail conditions to be like. You see that sometimes it is a flat dirt trail, and sometimes it has a few rocks. Sometimes it has a lot of rocks. Sometimes it is steep. Sometimes it is dry, and sometimes it is a mud pit. Sometimes there's a solid bridge, and sometimes there's not. It's never a crazy and dangerous rock scramble that you might see on other trails. You would have to try really hard to slip and fall to your death, though cuts and bruises are possible. In reality, it is a fairly tame trail. It is not to be feared. What about the weather? Remember, you're in northern Sweden. You're not even close to the equator anymore. While we can't talk about the actual weather you'll experience, we can talk about the climate. For temperature, you should expect that quite often it may go below freezing on both the Fahrenheit and Celsius scales. If it goes above 20 Celsius or 70 Fahrenheit, you should consider that a heat wave. It can go up to 30 degrees Celsius and 80 degrees Fahrenheit too. Assume it will be windy all day long. If it's not windy, then you've got a bonus day. The only problem is that the mosquitoes will come out when the wind is calm, so praying for a wind is my recommendation. You'll notice as you watch YouTubes from Kungsleden that there is rarely any wind in the videos. That's because when it's windy, you can't record any sound. The Kungsleden videos with narration are dubbed afterwards or are recorded in areas sheltered from the wind. People make videos in emergency shelters a lot. You've probably noticed that, right? The constant wind surprised me because I didn't notice when other YouTubers were or were not recording their videos. Typically, the wind will die down in the evening and overnight when the sun is not shining as strong. You will get rained on. Rain is expected on about half the days. It isn't every other day, which would be kind of nice. Instead, you'll get light or maybe heavy rain for a couple days, then will stop raining but remain cloudy. When it is sunny, the views will take your breath away. I go through the clothes and gear recommendations quite a bit in my book and in earlier videos. So let me just say now that you need to bring the layers of clothes you need to survive and thrive in the weather I just described. Windy, wet, cold, warm. One thing I haven't mentioned before is that you will rarely get hot and sweaty, even when Kungsleden goes up a steep hill like it does on the way up the Jakja Pass, the highest point on Kungsleden. The predominantly lower temperatures and the solid breeze will keep you cool. You may have experienced on other trails that you get hot and stinky and sweaty and you start to ferment in your own filth. One really nice thing about Kungsleden is the moderate climate. You might be working hard, but you'll still be comfortable. What tent should you bring? People have obviously been asking about the gear they need, especially their tent. But half the tents I saw were tunnel tents like those sold by Hilleberg or Fjallraven. These tents are designed to survive blizzard force winds with lots of snow and ice. They are expensive and heavy. The question people are asking is, do I need a tunnel tent that weighs more than 3 kilos or 6 pounds? The other half of the tents tend to be traditional tents like those sold by MSR, Big Agnes, Durston, Hyperlight Mountain Gear, Skalmo, Gossamer Gear, Six Moon Design, you know all the names. These tents use traditional fabrics as well as strong and lightweight fabrics like Dyneema. These tents weigh far under 3 kilos and often under 1 kilo. But are they strong enough for Kungsleden, you ask? I would love to be able to guarantee a successful tent choice, but really, all I can say is that lots of people have been successful with lots of different tents. The tent you normally use will probably be fine. Take what you normally use and set it up in areas protected from the wind as much as possible. Let me know how it works out for you. What kind of insurance do you need? I struggled with the decision on what insurance coverages I needed. The 3 basic types are medical, travel, and search and rescue. Search and rescue is often just referred to as SAR. Let's talk about travel insurance first. As I've gotten older, I've started buying travel insurance to cover interruptions in my travel plans. This has nothing to do with backpacking or Kungsleden. Flight changes and cancellations, train maintenance, delays, illness. It covers delays caused by illnesses in my immediate family, even if they're not traveling with me. At my age, a lot of things can go wrong. You have to make your own decisions. Are you putting a lot of time and money at risk without travel insurance? I'm sick of talking about medical insurance, so let's examine it one more time. My medical insurance in the States does not cover anything once I cross the border outbound. I did have to seek medical care in Sweden when I was younger, and it cost a fortune, and they wanted it paid up front in cash and on the spot. It was good medical care. I am not complaining about that a bit. For medical insurance, I have to have it. It's a requirement. SAR, or Search and Rescue Insurance, is a tough decision to make. One of my fears was that I would be unable to complete Kungsleden because of a physical problem. I wasn't actually too worried about an injury, though things can happen. I expected that either my general physical condition would be insufficient, so I would collapse clutching my chest, or that my new artificial knee would fail, leaving me writhing in pain in one of the mud pits. I opted for the SAR insurance offered through my Garmin account. It costs about $40 US per year. I think it can be described as best effort insurance. They'll make their best effort to find you if you're presumed to be alive. It is, after all, search and rescue insurance. If there's nothing to rescue, then there's no reason to make a search. What I ended up purchasing was overlapping insurance policies that included total medical care, SAR, and travel insurance, up to including the return of my body, dead or alive, all the way from wherever it was found in the Swedish mountains to a hospital or funeral home of my choice in the States. The cost varies based on your age, where you come from, where you're going to, how long you'll be away. I really can't advise you on exactly what insurance you have, but it is definitely something you need to have under control before you leave home. The insurance policies I bought came from Garmin, World Nomad, and Travel Guard. I'll put a link to all of them in the video notes. There are a lot of companies that sell this service, and since I unfortunately never needed to use any of them, I can't really give you a review. All other websites worked fine. What else can I say? How do I protect myself from wild animals? I actually kind of wish wild animals were an issue. You'll be lucky if you see any big animals, besides the reindeer. People even sleep with food in their tents because animals have not associated people with food. The animals don't even care that you're out there. Reindeer are a little skittish and want nothing to do with us. In fact, we're a huge danger to them by just being in the mountains. Stay as far away as you can for their safety. If we spook them, they might abandon their calves. There are animals that can be dangerous to humans. Black bear, elk, moose, wild boars, wolves, ticks, mosquitoes, gnats. We'll talk about those little guys shortly. If you're among the lucky people to see some big animals, keep your distance. Stay a long way away. Do not get closer for a better picture. If you do feel threatened in some way, move together as a group. Move slowly away. Wave your arms and make lots of noise. Let me know if this doesn't work for you so I can adjust my advice for the next people. What about those little animals like ticks, mosquitoes, and gnats? Your memories of Kungsleden hike might be dominated by thoughts, bad thoughts about mosquitoes. They can be vicious, but were troublesome for me only on one day. The wind had died down and we set up camp in a grove of birch trees that was a perfect breeding ground. We lit a smoky fire to chase them away. I honestly wasn't bothered by any bugs on Kungsleden. They rarely bothered me on any other trails either. Here's a link to a video showing how you can treat your clothes with permethrin. Permethrin will discourage all of those pests. You can also apply DEET or picaridin to your exposed skin. I hate how these things taste, so I avoid using them. Can I bring food into Sweden? Yeah, not a problem at all. You're bringing in processed food, dehydrated or freeze-dried food, and maybe food you've purchased commercially, right? You're not bringing in raw meat and fresh vegetables. That's the only kind of food that they have a problem with. There's plenty of opportunity in the urban areas to buy that fresh fruit on your way to Kungsleden. Do I have enough experience to hike Kungsleden? This is a question I struggled with, especially given my age, general condition, and a recently healed artificial knee operation. The bottom line is this. If you are seriously considering hiking for a month or even a week in the Swedish mountains, then you already have enough hiking, camping, backpacking skills to be successful. Do not overthink this. The cabins are a day's hike apart, so you are really just considering 20 back-to-back day hikes. Maybe that's an oversimplification, okay, but not really. Apply for your passport, get your tickets, you can do this. What's the best source of information about Kungsleden, besides these videos, of course? Obviously, I need to plug my book, John's Dad Hikes Kungsleden, The Guide to Hiking the King's Trail in Sweden. It's not the only good source of information, though. I primarily used this book during my planning. One of my family used the same book. It was the first thing we talked about when we met in Kvikjok. It presents the information at an appropriate level of detail. Some of the books I read had far too much detail in every page. For example, I read this passage in one of them. After you cross the river, you'll see two round rocks on the right side of the trail. The lingonberry patch 20 meters off the left of the trail, just beyond those rocks, was full of ripe berries. What? How is that even useful? If you decide to carry a heavy book with you, are you really going to be referring to it at every river crossing? I don't think so. I gotta say, too, that you'll make a lot of river crossings every day. It would be hard to decide which river should trigger your search for the round rocks and the lingonberries. I recently retired from an IT career where I spent decades working as a project manager. I laid out my Kungsleden book much like I would a project plan. The information you need is presented in the sequence you need it in as you work through your own planning and decision-making process. The checklists and appendices are easy reference to important details. The Kindle version is probably the best option for you. It saves you a lot of money, and you can take it with you on Kungsleden with no weight penalty. How about my STF benefits, Swedish Tourist Association benefits? We're getting close to the end. Next is a video showing you where on the STF website you should look to get those discounts for lodging and train travel. It's not totally obvious. After you've joined STF, you can go to their website. Now I've already logged in, but you can go log in. You log in as a member and scroll down, use your member benefits, 10% travel with Swedish Iron Road or Swedish Railroad. Click in here. Here they remind you about the 10% discount, and the discount you get includes that. So let's just say you want to go from Stockholm Central to Abisko, Östra. To get the discount on lodging, it's a little bit easier. You still need to log in as a member. Go to their website. Right here on their main page, they give you an option. We're going to go to Abisko. We'll go to the tourist station. Go over here and click search. Now you have a whole mess of different rooms you can pick from, and each of them have different conditions and all of that. So it's just something for you to read through and decide which one's appropriate for you. I'm just going to grab this first one. I'm going to book this. You can include breakfast, dinners, all for add-on costs. And if you're not an STF member, you have to add 100 crowns. The benefit that you get as an STF member is you do not need to add that. This is as easy as it gets. If you have any questions or want me to go over it again, please just leave a note below. I'd be glad to help however I can. Thanks for watching this Kungsleden video series. This will be the last Kungsleden video until I hike it again, hopefully next summer. If you see me out there, I would love to get a picture of you with Uni. If you have more questions or comments, please leave them below. If I don't have the answer you're looking for, I probably know the person who does. It really helps the channel if you share it with your friends. The John's Dad Hikes channel is approaching 1,000 subscribers, and I'm pretty excited to connect with this many people. You don't need to talk your old Aunt Mabel into subscribing. The actual numbers don't mean a lot to me. I'm hoping for subscribers who are truly interested in a life outdoors. My goal is to help as many people as I can in the short time I have remaining. You know, if your old Aunt Mabel likes to backpack, then by all means, bring her into the group. See you later, bye. Hej då!
Du gamla, du fria, du fjällhöga nord. Du tysta, du glädjerika sköna. Jag hälsar dig värnaste land upp på jord. Din sol, din himmel, dina ängder gröna. Din sol, din himmel, dina ängder gröna. Du trånar på minnen från fornstora dagar, då ärat ditt namn flög över jorden. Jag vet att du är och du blir vad du var. Ja, jag vill leva, jag vill dö i Norden. Ja, jag vill leva, jag vill dö i Norden. du glädjerika sköna. Jag hälsar dig värnaste land upp på jord. Din sol